Chapter 1698. Yu Feng, as the son of House Yu, the oldest of the noble houses, had a sense of superiority in his heart. He'd seen all kinds of women, and there were plenty who threw themselves at him, but none like Lingshan, who didn't care at all. Yu Feng didn't believe that he couldn't deal with Lingshan. Yu Feng only hurried back to the guest room, after sending the two to the door of House Yu. "They're gone?" Shueishing asked. "Yeah, they're gone. I told Yu Haitian to send someone to follow them, and see what they've been up to these 2 days. Yu Feng said. Shueishing nodded. He'd already agreed to let House Kong become a noble house, but he still wasn't at ease with House Kong. As a result, he told Yu Feng to send someone to follow Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng to see if they were playing any tricks. After leaving House Yu, Miracle Dr. Kong said to Guifeng impatiently, "Guifeng, you need to give Xiaoming a call and tell him to get the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing recipe from Miracle Dr. Guan's company as soon as possible. We don't have much time left, and although the promotion to a noble house went rather smoothly, House Yu won't let a powerless house like us take the position of a noble house forever." "Yes, father, I'll call Xiaoming right now." Kong Guifeng wasn't feeling too good either. Recently, Dr. Kong seemed to have taken a liking to Kong Mingming. If Kong Mingming really got the recipe, then Kong Ming would definitely become the next head of House Kong, and his son Xiaolong would be in danger. But Kong Guifeng didn't have a choice. Becoming a noble house had to be stronger than the current House Kong. Even if Xiaolong couldn't become the head of the house, his position would be much better than it was now. This was the benefit of being a noble house. Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng weren't there, and their conversation was heard by Yu Haitian's men. House Yu only had Shueishing and Yu Feng left, along with the half-dead Yu Kuan. House Yu still had a few others, and while they weren't strong, they were more than enough to follow House Kong. And so, at the same time, the conversation between the father and son was heard by Shueishing as well. "It seems like they're after the recipe," Shueishing said. "But no matter what, as long as they get the recipe, it's fine. As for where they get it from, it has nothing to do with us." "Father, about House Song Lingshan?" Yu Feng asked, unwilling to give up. "I've already pressured that old thing Song Xiangguan. I'll bring it up again during the meeting, and if that old thing doesn't know what's good for him, then we'll just kick him out." Shueishing was pissed at the mention of Xiangguan. He'd agreed to it, and now something happened to his granddaughter. Shueishing felt like he'd lost a lot of face. "Thank you, father." Yu Feng was overjoyed. The meeting of the noble houses, while some were happy and some were sad, was still held as promised. The so-called noble house meeting wasn't a big one. Only the heads of the 9 noble houses brought their younger generation to the meeting room of House Yu's auction house. Of course, other than the 9 noble houses, there was another house, House Kong. Other people were surprised, but when the old man of the Chun family and the old man of the Song family saw this situation, their hearts thumped. The hint was self-evident. The Kong family could participate in this meeting of the aristocratic families, which meant that the Kong family was likely to become a member of the aristocratic families. If the total number of noble houses increased by 1, then it'd be fine. But if it didn't change, then one of the noble houses would have to be purged. According to the agreement between the noble houses, it was better to have none than to have substandard members. So, those who didn't have the qualifications would definitely be purged from the noble house list. Sitting at the head of the meeting room was Yu Shueishing, and behind him was Yu Feng. As the leader of the noble house meeting, it was normal for House Yu to sit at the head of the table. The younger generation was only here to gain experience, so naturally, they wouldn't sit down. House Lu's old man Lu Jinhu, House Wu's old man Wu Gonggao, House Yang's old man Yang Daocha, House Song's old man Song Xiangguan, House Sun's old man Chen Kuanglan, House An's old man and Mingyue, House Xiao's current head Xiao Ji, and standing behind him was his brother Xiao Ben. They didn't bring Xiao Wangba and Xiao Wangdao. The only ones who stood out were House Kang's Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng. They were sitting at the end, but the rankings would probably be rearranged after the meeting. "Everyone's here. We're all old acquaintances, so I won't say much." Shueishing made a gesture for silence, speaking slowly. "The noble house meeting is a rule that has been in place for many years. And I'm sure you all understand that the first part of the meeting is to rank the nobles and the nobles. This is a rule that hasn't changed since time immemorial, and the ranking of the noble houses is based on their wealth and the strength of their members, as well as the background of the noble houses. Everyone knew this rule, but the ranking was usually made up of the 4 strongest noble houses and the 5 weaker ones. This was the so-called 4 big noble houses and 5 small noble houses, but there was no specific ranking. Of course, House Yu, who was the strongest overall, was still the leader. The first part was enough to make Elder Chen Kuanglan feel sorrowful. House Chen had a huge advantage in this meeting, with Chen Yutian becoming a mystic early phase. Add that marriage with House Chen, and there shouldn't be a problem for them to be in the 4 big noble houses. But because of Chen Yutian's meddling, he was beaten into a cripple. House Chen was done for this time, and they probably wouldn't even have a place in the 5 small noble houses. The second part is to clean up the grudges. If you have any conflicts, you can speak up, and I and the others will help you mediate. If you can't, then we'll use the old rule force. Of course, if you give up the right to pursue the matter, then you can't use the old grudges to talk about it anymore. This has always been the rule of us noble houses. Everyone's goal is to earn more money and more time. If we always waste our time and energy on grudges, I'm afraid no one wants to see that. Yu Shuixing continued, glancing at Elder Chen Kuanglan as he spoke. Chapter 1699. Everyone nodded after hearing Shuixing's words. Only House Chen's Chen Kuanglan and House Song's Song Xiangguan felt sorrow. It seemed like House Yu was going to use them as an example. The other houses, on the other hand, didn't have much of a grudge against each other. They were all noble houses after all, and they all gave each other some face. Plus, there were marriages within the houses, so there wasn't much conflict. They all put on innocent and kind expressions. Only Jiang Wen stood behind his father and Mingyue, squinting his eyes at everyone like a wolf looking for its prey. House Im wasn't weak. They didn't have any practitioners, but they had a lot of money, and they had the support of the firewolves. There was no doubt that they'd be able to maintain their position as one of the 5 small noble houses. But Jiang Wen didn't seem to care about all this. In his eyes, these noble houses were all his targets, fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Jiang Wen's ambition had grown to the extreme, and with the professor's support, he didn't care about the normal noble houses anymore. Of course, even House Yu didn't know that the Firewolf gang was just a cover. Behind the Firewolf gang, there was a huge backer. The professor was here to help Jiang Wen earn money, but in reality, some of the results of his research were for the backer behind the Firewolf gang. As for the money he earned, the backer didn't really care about it, so he left it for the Firewolf gang to develop themselves. Jiang Wen himself wasn't too clear on this, but he knew one thing. Once the professor could create a medicine that could maintain the mystic class for a long time, he'd be able to make his move on the noble houses. Regrettably, though, that medicine couldn't be given to him, or he'd get a taste of what it felt like to be a master. The third round is the sparring between the younger generation. House Yu, on the other hand, has prepared some medicine for the winner of this sparring competition. A small qi-gathering pill from the hidden House Yu. I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's a great medicine for increasing strength. Shuixing said. Wah-dash. Everyone revealed looks of envy and greed when they heard that the prize was a lesser qi-gathering pill. But they all knew that House Yu's Yufeng was the strongest amongst the younger generation, and no one else could fight him. So, rather than saying that this prize was a prize, it was more accurate to say that House Yu took it out to show off. After all, in a sparring match, Yufeng would be the winner no matter what, and this pill was still his. Therefore, after the surprise and envy, everyone calmed down. They didn't need to think too much about things that didn't belong to them. How could something in House Yu's hands be so easily obtained? Since no one has any questions, let's move on to the first part. Each house, report your income from last year, as well as the strength of your practitioners. Do you have any backers? Shuixing said. House Yu, I don't need to talk about it. Just the income from this auction house alone is enough to cover the income of a few of your families. As for our strength, there's no need to talk about it. I'm a mystic late phase peak. Yu Feng was at the middle phase of the mystic class. And our House Yu's backing is the hidden House Yu. Shueisheng said that there was no need to talk about it, but he still gave a detailed description of House Yu's strength. Indeed, House Yu's strength was the strongest amongst all the noble houses. Our Xiao family didn't have much income last year, but we've received a few big deals recently. Next year, we'll probably get a few billion, of course, including our fixed assets. Xiao Ji said proudly. Our Xiao family doesn't have any practitioners at the moment, but our backer, the Hidden House Pai, has said that he'll guide my son and nephew in training. The Xiao family's situation made everyone gasp. They were a family that didn't receive much attention at the auction, and now they'd become famous all of a sudden. It seemed that having the support of a hidden house was indeed different. It wouldn't be long before Xiao family would be on the same level as House Yu. Other than House Yu, the Xiao family had the biggest backing, so it was normal for Xiao family to speak up first. Of course, the firewolves behind House An weren't weak either, but An Mingyue was a low-profile person, especially since he and the firewolves were involved in some illegal dealings. It was best not to speak too much. Our House Lu's fixed assets increased by around 3 billion last year. As for practitioners, we don't have any yet, Jinhu said. With House Lu's strength, it wouldn't be a problem for them to keep their position, but they'd definitely become one of the 5 small noble houses. I'm a mystic middle phase, and while our House Wu's business isn't that big, we still have a few billion worth of assets. Gonggao felt sorrowful as well. If Chen Tian hadn't died, House Wu would definitely be second only to the Xiao family. But now, it was hard to say whether or not they could enter the ranks of the 4 big noble houses. House Yu's position as one of the 4 big noble houses was already set in stone, and Xiao family had the intention of catching up to them. They'd definitely become one of the 4 big noble houses. As for House Sun, while they were a healer family, their position was special. As long as Elder Sun was still alive, House Sun would definitely be one of the 4 big noble houses. As for the last spot, Gonggao felt that he might not be able to fight for it. House An wasn't weak either. Not only did they have the support of the firewolves, but they were also very rich. Before, House An didn't have much money, but with the support of the firewolves, they became the leader of the 5 small noble houses. Now, they'd probably enter the ranks of the 4 big noble houses. Of course, taking a step back, even if House An gave up on this position, if House Song agreed to the marriage with House Yu, then House Yu would definitely give House Song a spot as one of the 4 great houses. This way, House Wu would have no hope at all. One had to know that although the 4 great aristocratic families and the 5 small aristocratic families were all aristocratic families, there was a huge difference in their levels. The Wu family was definitely not as glorious as before. After that, the other houses reported their strength as well. When it was Elder Chen's turn, Chen Guanglan thought of her injured grandson, Chen Yutian, and her heart ached. She sighed helplessly. House Chen doesn't have any properties. Chen Yutian used to be a mystic early phase, but he was crippled. Now he only has the support of an ancient sect. Ancient sect? Which ancient sect? Dr. Kong spoke up before Shueisheng, and the others could speak. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian and recommend it. Your support is my greatest motivation. Chapter 1700. Chen Guanglan frowned. He knew that House Kong was up to no good. It seemed like they'd planned this from the start. The ancient sect's engagement was a top secret, and Chen Guanglan couldn't just say which sect it was. The ancient sect didn't allow him to say it, either. Plus, it had been so long, and there was no news at all. This was basically a lost cause, and Chen Guanglan didn't expect this to be a bargaining chip for House Chen. He'd lost all hope before coming here, so he wasn't surprised at all. He looked at Dr. Kong. You can pretend it's nothing. House Chen has no money, no background, and no practitioners. House Head you. How can a house like this become a noble house? Isn't that a little weird? Miracle Dr. Kong asked, a little surprised. Chino pop-up window in. We're just calculating the strength of each house. We'll talk about other things later. Shueisheng nodded, but the meaning behind his words was clear to everyone. Now it's time for everyone to settle their grudges. Do you guys have any grudges? Can you bring them up? What grudges did these people have? So when Shuixing asked the question, everyone's eyes focused on Elder Chen Kuanglan. What happened these days wasn't a secret. Everyone knew what happened between House Yu and House Chen. In fact, House Chen could be considered the victim, but there was nothing they could do. Whoever was stronger was in the right. House Yu was clearly bullying House Chen, and House Chen couldn't do anything about it. Since no one's talking, then we'll start with House Yu. Shuixing turned to Chen Kuanglan faintly. Elder Chen, your Chen Yutian is meddling in my son and his girlfriend's business for no reason at all. What's going on? There's always a reason to frame someone. Chen Kuanglan was going all out. There was no chance for him to turn the situation around anymore. But he had to make things clear before leaving the noble house meeting, right? He was weak, and House Chen had no money, no practitioners, and no back. He could give up on the title of a noble house, but he couldn't allow himself to be wronged. And so Chen Kuanglan had to make things clear. Lingshan isn't your son's girlfriend, is she? This was something Lingshan had never admitted to. How was this interfering? Plus, there's nothing between my grandson and Lingshan. There's nothing between them. Your son hurt my grandson for no reason at all. Shouldn't you give us an explanation for this, House Yu? Give you an explanation? Old thing, have you gone senile? Shuixing didn't say anything, but Dr. Kong spoke up first, pointing at Chen Kuanglan. Even I, who's not from a noble house, have heard of Yu Feng and Lingshan's marriage. How could you not have? Are you bullshitting me? Dr. Kang's words made Chen Kuanglan's veins bulge. This Dr. Kong and Shuixing were working together, obviously trying to cause trouble for her. Patriarch Chen, how do you explain this? Let's talk about the facts. It's true that your Chen Yutian interfered and caused a rift between my son and Lingshan. You have to give us an explanation for this, don't you? Shuixing thought that this Dr. Kong wasn't a bad person after all. He knew how to play along and let House Chen take a bite out of him. I give you an explanation? Chen Kuanglan clenched her fists and glared at Shuixing, her heart filled with sorrow. She was the victim here, but it was like House Yu was the one who'd suffered a huge loss. What? Elder Chen doesn't want to follow the rules of a noble house? Shuixing asked faintly. Patriarch Chen, in order to regain my face, I'm prepared to challenge your Chen Yutian. Of course, anyone from House Chen can take his place. Elder Chen, you can do it yourself too. I won't say that you're bullying the weak. Haha. Yu Feng followed Shuixing's words with a smile. Chen Kuanglan's heart was filled with humiliation. She stood up abruptly, her eyes red as she glared at Shuixing and Yu Feng. House Yu, don't go too far. Aren't you ashamed to act like a victim? Do you think I don't know what you're trying to achieve? Elder Chen, what do you mean by this? Everything is being done according to the rules of a noble house. If you think that we're bullying you, then you can bring it up and challenge us. Shuixing said faintly. Challenge me or challenge Yu Feng, it's all fine. Chen Kuanglan clutched his chest, almost coughing up blood. House Chen didn't have any practitioners, so how could they be a match for House Yu? Wasn't challenging them the same as committing suicide? Chen Kuanglan was prepared to be kicked out of the noble house ranks. But he couldn't keep his cool after being humiliated like this by House Yu. House Yu had gone too far, acting like a victim when they got the advantage. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You want me to leave the noble house ranks, right? I'll leave, you don't have to say so much. This was supposed to be a meeting of 9 noble houses, and now there's a house Kong. Shuixing, you think I don't know what you're planning? Do you think I don't know what you're trying to do with me? I'll be leaving the noble house myself this time. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Chen Kuanglan smiled bitterly as he looked around at everyone. No one was speaking up for him. Everyone knew that House Yu was twisting the facts, but who would dare speak up for House Chen? Chen Kuanglan's gaze finally landed on Song Xiangguan. Yutian was injured because of Lingshan, and if Xiangguan didn't speak up now, it'd be too much. But Xiangguan couldn't even protect himself right now, and as apologetic as he was, he didn't dare speak up. Old friend, don't get too worked up, let's sit down and talk. Yeah, could it be that old man Chen thinks that by withdrawing from the ranks of the aristocratic families, everything will be fine? Shuixing followed up. Before you leave the noble house ranks, you need to give me an explanation, right? You dash Chen Kuanglan was shaking with rage. He never would have thought that Shuixing would be this shameless. He'd already made such a huge concession, but Shuixing was still pushing it. This made Elder Chen's chest heave up and down. Even his breathing was uneven. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1701. Kuanglan let out a long breath and pointed at Shuixing, raging. Shuixing, don't go too far. I've already left the noble house list. What else do you want from me? Do you want me to give up my life here as an apology? That's right, house head you. Elder Chen is an old acquaintance of ours. Let's just let this go and let him leave peacefully. Elder Song Xiangwen couldn't help but speak up. No pop-up window Qi, house head Song. We're talking about the grudge between House Yu and House Chen. We haven't even settled our score yet. And you still want to stand up for someone else? Shuixing looked at Xiangwen, his voice dark. Your house song broke the engagement. Don't you want to give us an explanation? Xiangwen didn't think that his words for House Chen would cause Shuixing to point the spear at him. He could only look at Kuanglan apologetically, avoiding eye contact. House Song can't say that we broke the engagement, but the two kids don't seem to be getting along very well. I only said that they'd get along for a while. I didn't say that they had to be together. Let's not talk about you for now. We'll talk about House Chen later. Shuixing's words extinguished Xiangwen's fire. He turned back to Kuanglan. You're leaving the noble house list, that's for sure. But it doesn't mean that it'll be fine. House Yu's reputation has been damaged. You should at least show some sincerity to compensate us, right? House Yu, aren't you being a little unreasonable here? House Yu is the head of the noble houses, and we should be a role model. You should be more generous. Don't you think it's a little inappropriate for you to push an old man like this? It was Sunny Kai who spoke up. He was a straightforward person, always wanting to stick his nose into things that were unfair. He knew that it wasn't his place to speak, but he couldn't help but speak up anyway. House head son, it seems that your upbringing isn't that great. Didn't you tell him about the rules of the noble house meeting? The young ones are only here to learn. They don't have the right to speak. Shuixing looked at Ikai darkly as he spoke to Elder Sunday ahem. Ikai, don't talk nonsense. Old man Sun looked at his grandson awkwardly. He also knew his grandson's character. He was the kind of chivalrous person who would stand up for injustice. However, on this occasion, with the Sun family's identity, it was impossible for them to speak up for the Chen family. Grandpa, I'm not spouting nonsense. I'm just stating a fact. Justice is in everyone's heart. Now everyone can see that the Chen family has fallen. Just let them withdraw quietly. Why do we have to make things difficult for them? Sun Ikai was stubborn. He raised his head and said stubbornly, Is everyone mute? Your silence today may bring about the same outcome as the Chen family tomorrow. Who can guarantee that their family will not decline like the Chen family in the future? Sun Ikai's words were right in the hearts of all the aristocratic families. Sun Ikai was right. This time it was the Chen family. Next time it might be their family. This was especially true for the weaker families, such as the current Lu family. Sun Ikai, do you have the right to speak here? The juniors should have the rules of the juniors. Could it be that House Sun thinks that you're strong enough, stronger than House Yu, that you can replace House Yu? Chingdi spoke up at this moment. He was speaking for House Yu. After all, House Wu and House Sun were no longer connected by marriage. He wasn't afraid of offending House Sunday. Instead, saying something like that would please House Yu, so why not? However, he didn't think that his words would backfire on him. He said that House Yu was strong. Didn't that mean that House Yu was bullying others? If House Sun was stronger than House Yu, then wouldn't House Yu be in the wrong? And so this flattery really pissed Shuixing off. He was pushing them step by step, but he was just pointing at them and saying that he was in the right. Now that Chingdi said it, it sounded like he was bullying others. Head Wu, you should take care of your grandson. It's not good to stick your nose in other people's business. Wu Qintian was crippled because of it. Don't let your grandson become crippled as well. Shuixing warned faintly. Gong Gao was a smart man, and he felt that Chingdi's words weren't very appropriate. Weren't you saying that House Yu was bullying others? How could they be happy? The noble houses had to at least keep up appearances. And if you continued like this, wouldn't House Yu be embarrassed? But Shuixing's words hit Gonggao's sore spot. Chen was his favorite, and he was being used as a scapegoat. Gonggao was furious. Head you, what do you mean by that? What's wrong with my grandson? He's just a little injured, he's not crippled, is he? Is this a curse? Crippled or not, you know it yourself. Shuixing wasn't afraid of Gonggao. What head Wu, you're not happy. Then in the third segment, you can let your grandson Chen come up and spar with him. If he defeats my son Yufeng, then facts will speak louder than words. Gonggao's weakness was hit, but he couldn't rebuke. If he agreed, wouldn't that be sending Chen to his death? Even Chen wasn't a match for Yufeng. They were a whole level apart. And so, Gonggao could only keep his head down and keep quiet sulking. Alright, househead Chen, look, no one's standing up for you now. And they all think that you should show some sincerity and compensation. Shuixing turned his attention back to Kuanglan after dealing with the crowd. What sincerity? What compensation? Kuanglan suppressed her anger and asked, her hand on her chest. I won't ask for much. Your House Chen's villa in Yinjing, give it to us. From now on, House Chen will move out of Yinjing, and don't let me see you again. Shuixing said coldly. Otherwise, don't blame me for remembering what happened back then. You. Kuanglan almost fainted from the anger. House Chen had lived in this villa for so many years, and now he was telling him to give it up and leave Yinjing, never to appear in front of House Yu again? Me what? If it weren't for the fact that House Chen doesn't have that much money, I wouldn't have taken out $1 billion or so. Do you think this will be settled so easily? Shuixing said faintly. Shuixing, I don't know if you've heard of this saying. The river flows 30 years east and 30 years west. Prosperity and decline are ever-changing. Chen Kuanglan was so angry that he calmed down. He pointed at Yu Shuixing and said word by word. Yu Shuixing, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be too ruthless. Your house you will meet its end sooner or later. Chapter 1702. 30 years. Ha 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 ha. Old thing. It's a question if you'll even live past 30 years. Shuixing laughed heartily, not taking Kuanglan's words seriously at all. Alright, I'll wait and see if this day will come for House Yu. No need to wait, 30 years is too long. The door of the conference room was kicked open, and a voice as cold as hell rang in everyone's ears. Although it was low, it was mixed with thick true energy, causing everyone's eardrums to buzz, giving them a kind of deafening feeling. The door of the meeting room turned into a pile of wood shavings. Not a single piece was intact. Everyone in the meeting room jumped in fright. They never thought that someone would dare come at a time like this. One had to know that the noble house meeting was a meeting of the strongest practitioners in the common world. The wood shavings slowly dispersed, and 5 people appeared in front of the meeting room. Lenny stood in the middle. He was the one who broke the meeting room's door, and he was the one who said those words. There were 4 people behind him. 2 were standing, and 2 were sitting. Yushu and Lingshan were standing, and Yutian and Wu Chintian were sitting. Yutian and Chintian were in wheelchairs, pushed by Yushu and Lingshan as they followed Lin Yi into the meeting room. Lin Yi? Shuixing couldn't be more familiar with this Lin Yi person. The first time he met him was when he was with Xu Amin, and Shuixing didn't pay much attention to him back then. But after a series of events, Lin Yi became House Yu's mortal enemy. Didn't you want to see if this day would come for House Yu? Then you don't have to wait, you'll see it now. Lin Yi looked around the room, his eyes landing on Sun Yikai and Sun Jingyi. He smiled and nodded at them before turning to Zhenhu. No pop-up window in the conference room. There were only a few acquaintances. Lin Yi didn't have any personal relationships with the others, so he naturally wouldn't greet them. When Sun Jingyi first arrived at the conference room, she was wondering why Lin Yi wasn't here. Wasn't he here with Chintian? But all he saw was Gonggao and Chindi, not Chintian and Lin Yi. At this time, the aristocratic family's meeting had already begun, so she had no way to call Lin Yi again. After that, House Yu attacked House Chen right away, giving him no chance to talk to his grandpa. He didn't think that Lin Yi would show up at the noble house meeting like this. Is he here to participate in the aristocratic family gathering? This was practically a show of force. Lin Yi, I didn't even have the time to find trouble with you. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. Do you really think that we, the common world house you, can't do anything to you? Shueishing looked at Lin Yi, his eyes filled with rage. What a joke. I thought you brought some helpers, but you brought 2 handicaps, a normal person, and a mystic early phase Lingshan. How childish. Yu Feng's strength wasn't as high as Lin Yi's, and it was because of Yu Feng that Lin Yi got into trouble. So he told Yu Feng to retreat first. He himself was busy with the noble house meeting, so he didn't have the time to look for trouble with Lin Yi. But this Lin Yi came knocking on his door. Did he really think that he was invincible as a mystic mid-phase peak? Shield bro, how did this guy become the head of House Yu? Why is he so similar to us? We're here to cause trouble, and he's not afraid at all. So what if my brother is handicapped? He can still take revenge. Yushu closed her mouth subconsciously after saying the word. She only breathed out in relief after realizing that Mingyao wasn't there. Otherwise, she'd tell Yushu not to curse, or she'd tear her mouth apart. I don't know, but there's only 2 normal people left in their house. That Xie Yufeng is even more of a weakling, and he's standing out. Lin Yi said. Oh, I see. Yushu nodded. Prophet Shu, your House Yu is done for. The sudden appearance of Lin Yi's group stunned everyone in the meeting room. They didn't know what was going on, especially Elder Chen Kuanglan. He didn't understand. Why would the granddaughter bring her grandson here? Wasn't this just looking to die? Old Song Xiangguan, on the other hand, was a little pissed off as well. It was fine that Lingshan didn't want to marry Yu Feng, but now she was messing around with House Yu's enemies. What was House Song going to do now? Elder Wu Gonggao, on the other hand, didn't understand the situation. Chen Tian said that he had Lin Yi as his boss, and now Lin Yi brought 2 handicapped people to cause trouble? What was going on? Grandpa, hurry up and announce that we're not related to Chen Tian anymore. Isn't he harming us? Chendi lowered his voice and said to Gonggao. Gonggao looked at Chendi coldly and didn't say anything. It wasn't that he didn't understand, but he couldn't do something like that. Chen Tian was his grandson. Grandpa, I'm sorry for making you worry, but I did say that I'll be your pride. Chen Tian saw through Gonggao's confusion and comforted him. Over at House Sun, Ikai lowered his head and said to Elder Sun, Grandpa, he's my sister's boyfriend, my brother-in-law. Elder Sun thought that his ears were damaged and he didn't hear it clearly. Ikai, what did you say? Grandpa, the boyfriend I was talking about. It's actually him. He's here. Sun Jingyi said helplessly, thinking that this Lin Yi was really something. It was fine if he didn't come, but when he did, he caused such a huge commotion. Elder Sun almost had a heart attack after hearing that. Why was Sun Jingyi's boyfriend here to cause trouble? How could this be? If House Yu found out about this, wouldn't House Sun be in trouble? Elder Sun coughed twice, and was about to tell Sun Jingyi not to say anything, and not to recognize him. But someone else came to recognize Lin Yi first. The talented lady of the Lu family, Lu Jinghan, had also come. Her face was covered with a veil. She did not want others to know her true appearance. She had been hiding behind the scenes of the Lu family. Even the people of the other aristocratic families did not know what Lu Jinghan looked like. However, the other aristocratic families did not care about her mystery. Even if she was as beautiful as a goddess, she wasn't a practitioner. The temptation of a beauty wasn't as strong as the strength of a practitioner. Jing, what do we do? Lu Tianyi stood behind Lu Zhenhu and asked Lu Jinghan in a low voice. Chapter 1703. Something's not good. I think House Yu is done for this time. Lu Jinghan pondered for a moment and said. She was a person who was good at calculation and analysis. Based on the research and analysis she had collected on Lin Yi during this period of time, it seemed that Lin Yi would not do something so stupid as to throw away his life. There was only one possibility, and that was that Lin Yi had absolute confidence. Then House Yu would be in danger. Lu Tianyi raised his eyebrows and walked quickly towards Lin Yi. Under everyone's surprised gaze, he greeted Lin Yi enthusiastically. Miracle Dr. Lin, you're here. Why didn't you tell me in advance that I was going to pick you up? Hehe, I'm here to cause a scene. If I told you, wouldn't I implicate you? Lin Yi was also a little surprised that Lu Tianyi would publicly support him at this time. One had to know that Lin Yi's current strength was far below House Yu's in everyone's eyes. But Lu Tianyi supported him so decisively. This was not an easy feat. Therefore, at this moment, the Lu family was also included in Lin Yi's scope of use. What are you talking about? What's there to implicate? You are my father's savior, and our Lu family's great benefactor. Our Lu family will go through water and tread on fire to help you. Lu Tianyi said. You're not bad. Lin Yi nodded. But Mr. Lu, you should stay away for a while. You're not a cultivator, so you can't solve the problem here. Okay. Lu Tianyi nodded and dodged to the side. Lu Tianyi, how are you? As soon as Lin Yi came, you went to suck up to him. House you will remember this grudge. Shuixing felt like he'd lost a lot of face. Lu Tianyi was slapping him in the face. And so, Shuixing decided that once this was over, the next target would be House Lu. Alright, don't write it down. I reckon that after today, you'll lose your ability to remember. Lin Yi said indifferently. What do you mean? Yu Feng raged. Lin Yi, don't think I'm scared of you just because you're a level higher than me. My father is a mystic late phase peak, one step away from the Earth class. It's not too late for you to kneel and beg for mercy. What do you mean he doesn't know? Lin Yi shrugged and turned to Yushu. Shu, this guy's a little dumb. Tell him what he means. Shield bro means to tell you that after today, you're a dead man. Dead people don't have memories. Yushu said proudly as she looked at Lin Yi. Shield bro, am I right? Congratulations, you're absolutely right. Lin Yi nodded. Yay. Yushu made a victory sign with her hand. Ha 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 ha. Yu Feng started laughing. Lin Yi, are you out of your mind? You're just a bunch of old people. And you want to challenge me? Who do you think you are? I can kill you even if I'm a cripple. Yu Tian clenched his fists and looked at Yu Feng. Yu Feng, didn't your house you say it? If you want to solve your grudges, you can do it with force? Very well, I'll challenge you now. Challenge me? You. Yu Feng's eyes widened, as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. You're a cripple and you want to challenge me? Chen Yutian, do you want to die? We don't know who's going to die yet. Yutian said indifferently. The humiliation from that day, I'll wash it away today. Head Chen, you see, your grandson is the one who wants to die. We didn't kill him. Yu Feng said to Kuanglan. You know the rules of the arena. Life and death are decided by the heavens, and there's no need to pursue this matter. Kuanglan was surprised by Yutian's sudden appearance, and even more so by his sudden challenge to Yu Feng. But as far as he was concerned, his grandson wasn't that impulsive, and Yushu was here as well. How could he just watch Yutian walk to his death? There had to be something he didn't know, but he still said, This is Yutian's decision, I support him. Alright, let's go to the arena next door. Shuixing, on the other hand, wanted to see what Lin Yi was up to, but in order to prevent them from playing any tricks, he spoke up first. Chen Yutian, since you're the one who issued the challenge, you should go up, right? You won't find someone to replace you, will you? To be honest, Shuixing was really afraid that Yutian would find Lin Yi to replace him. And so, he blocked Yutian's escape route and continued. Don't say that Lin Yi is your sister's boyfriend, that he's part of House Chen too. No need, I'll take my revenge with my own hands. Yutian looked at Shuixing with disdain. Alright, you're asking to die, so don't blame anyone else. Shuixing said. As long as Lin Yi didn't go up, everything would be fine. Yutian was a cripple, and even if he wasn't in a wheelchair, he was only a mystic early phase, 2 levels lower than Yu Feng. Yu Feng could easily beat him up. There's no need for the arena, we can settle it here. Yutian said. Ha 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 ha. Do what you want, but don't say that I'm bullying you. You're just a piece of trash in my hands, and you still are. Yu Feng laughed as he walked towards Yutian, but his laughter stopped abruptly. Because he saw Chen Yutian, who was sitting in the wheelchair, stand up. Yu Feng's eyes widened. Wasn't Yutian disabled? Wasn't he in a wheelchair? How could he stand up? Yu Feng pointed at Yutian in disbelief. Aren't you disabled? Who told you that disabled people can't recover? I just got out of the hospital, can't I? Yutian looked at Yu Feng mockingly. Then, why are you in a wheelchair? Yu Feng felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't pinpoint it. After all, no matter how strong Yutian was, he was only a mystic early phase. And that was before he was injured. Even if Lin Yi had some miraculous medicine that could heal Yu Tian's wounds and restore his strength, he was only an early-phase mystic class master. Even if he broke through during this period of time, he could only be a peak early-phase mystic class master. There was still a gap between him and Lin Yi. What was there to be afraid of? However, Yu Feng had an indescribable sense of foreboding. He felt that this matter was a little too strange. Oh, I was in a wheelchair every day in the hospital, so I'm used to it. Yu Tian stretched his body. Suddenly standing up makes me feel a little lightheaded. So the doctor told me to do some recovery training, but they're using you. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1704. Are you messing with me? Wow bro, you're so pretentious but not as good as Shield bro, Yushu complimented. Yu Tian was about to say of course, when he heard the second half of his sister's sentence. He almost fell back into the wheelchair. But thinking about it, it was normal that he wasn't as strong as Lin Yi. If he was stronger than Lin Yi, why would he call Lin Yi his boss? Chen Yutian said proudly. That's right, I wanted to make some entrance music, just like in dramas. Too bad I came in a rush, and didn't have time to prepare anything. That's right, I didn't have time. Fuck, Chen Yutian. Don't think that you can beat me now that you're out of the hospital. You're just an early-phase mystic class. You're dreaming if you think you can beat me. Yu Tian and Yushu's words completely infuriated Yu Feng. He was ignored, and this made him furious. Who told you that I'm still an early-phase mystic class? Yu Tian asked back. Yu Feng, there's something wrong with your brain. You're not an early-phase mystic class. Are you at the peak of early-phase mystic class? Yu Feng froze. No. Yu Tian shook his head. Then you're still an early-phase mystic class. Are you messing with me? Yu Feng was stunned by Yu Tian's words, and his embarrassment turned into anger. He wanted to charge at Yu Tian. Chen Yu Tian, I think you're here to die. Feng, wait. Shueixing felt that something was wrong. Yu Feng was hot-headed, but Shueixing wasn't hot-headed. He felt that something was wrong. No matter how stupid Yu Tian was, he wouldn't come here to die, would he? Could it be that this kid had some dirty tricks up his sleeve? After all, from Shueixing's perspective, it was impossible for Yu Tian to increase his strength, but he might have a trump card. Otherwise, why would he dare to provoke him like this? What, Shueixing? Are you going back on your words and breaking the rules you set yourself? Grudges and grudges should be settled with strength? Grandpa Chen Kuanglan saw that his grandson was full of confidence, and his granddaughter was also very normal. Although he was puzzled, he understood his grandson and granddaughter better than anyone else. Chen Yutian was a little impulsive, but he wouldn't do something so stupid. Plus, he had Yushu by his side. How could Yushu let Chen Yutian die? Especially that mysterious Lin Yi. Elder Chen had heard of him a long time ago. Although he was Ming Yao and Shu's bodyguard on the surface, what he did wasn't something a bodyguard should do. Killing a master from House Yu and crippling a master from House Yu? Was this something a normal bodyguard would do? Plus, that wasn't all. Wasn't the hidden house pie powerful? Lin Yi still got rid of one. And his follower Er Gooden got rid of two. House pie didn't even dare to fart. Wasn't that suspicious? If this wasn't amazing, then Jin Wudi and his disciple Ma Zhu from the Golden Bell sect were both killed by Lin Yi and Er Gooden. This was a miracle. Jin Wudi was a master of the Golden Bell shield, and even Earth-class masters had to be careful of him. Yet he was killed by Lin Yi's follower in one punch. What kind of level was this? And so, Chen Kuanglan thought of all these miracles, and it was as if he'd taken a stimulant. He started shaking all of a sudden, sweeping away the darkness and pressure from before. He'd thought it through. Since his grandson was so confident, he'd go crazy with him this time. House Chen was about to fall, and with Lin Yi's help, he might be able to turn the situation around. Shueixing paused at the change in Chen Kuanglan's attitude, but it was fine if he didn't say it. Now that he said it, Shueixing felt more confident. He wasn't as old as Chen Kuanglan, but his eyes were sharper and sharper. One look, and he saw the hidden worry and madness in Chen Kuanglan's eyes. It seemed like this old thing was worried as well. And Chen Kuanglan probably didn't know about what Yu Tian had done today. This meant that Yu Tian had acted on his own. or Chen Guanglan wouldn't have that expression on her face right now. Taking a step back, if House Chen had really prepared beforehand, then Chen Guanglan wouldn't have been forced to this state at the start. If that was the case, then what was there to be afraid of? Perhaps Yutian wasn't willing to give up, and came to get revenge as soon as he recovered. Or maybe he learned some tricks from Lin Yi, and thought he was strong enough to challenge Yufeng. From Shuixing's perspective, if Yutian really had absolute confidence, there was no way Chen Guanglan wouldn't know about it, and House Chen wouldn't be so passive this time. Of course, this was only what a normal person would think. Shuixing neglected the fact that Lin Yi had a deeper intention, and that was to destroy House Yu. Yutian's revenge on Yufeng was just a prelude, a warm-up. The real show was yet to come. But this was something Shuixing couldn't have foreseen. How could he know that Lin Yi was already in Earth class? Of course not. I just have some things that I need to make clear, Shuixing said faintly as he looked at Chen Guanglan. Before the challenge, I'm sure you understand the rules of the arena, right? Life and death are up to the heavens, and no one can be held accountable? Of course. Chen Guanglan felt a little guilty after hearing Shuixing's words, but he still tried to act tough. What's there to say? We're all from noble houses, of course we know this. Yutian knows this as well. That's good. Lil Feng, don't go easy on him, be careful of his dirty tricks. Shuixing nodded, hinting to Yufeng. He wanted him to kill as soon as possible, so that Yutian wouldn't have a chance to make a comeback. Shuixing, on the other hand, saw the flash of worry in Chen Guanglan's eyes, and this made him feel more at ease. It seemed that Chen Guanglan didn't have confidence in Yutian either. He was thinking too much, Shuixing thought. No problem. Chen Yutian, I didn't kill you last time, but I won't go easy on you this time. Since you're here, you should be prepared to die. With that, Yufeng's hands turned into palms, slapping towards Yutian. Lin Yi saw this move, but Lin Yi shook his head. The difference between Mystic and Earth class wasn't just a little bit. It was a dividing line, and that wasn't wrong at all. Upon reaching the Earth rank, one could learn martial techniques. And only with martial techniques could one be called a true cultivator. In the past, he'd only been a beginner. But now that Lin Yi was an Earth class master, Yufeng was nothing more than a beginner. Hashtag. Chapter 1705. Was this a dream? Yutian's lips curled into a cold smile as he channeled his own practitioner's arts, pushing out his palms as well, wanting to use the same move to meet Yufeng's attack. Watch out, Feng. Shuixing felt Yutian's strength in that instant, and at the same time, he couldn't help but blurt out, careful. But it was too late. The two's palms collided in an instant, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that Yufeng was sent flying by Yutian the moment Shuixing's words left his mouth, crashing into the white wall of the meeting room. The force of the impact created a human-shaped hole in the wall, with blood stains all over it. Mystic mid-phase and Mystic late-phase peak were two completely different fighters. If they'd been fighting with techniques, Yufeng wouldn't have lost so badly, but Yufeng had chosen to fight head-on. He'd listened to Shuixing's words and wanted to kill Yutian right off the bat, but he hadn't expected the opponent's chi to be so strong that he'd been sent flying. Everyone was dumbfounded, including Chen Guanglan and the other heads of the noble houses. They stared at Yutian in disbelief. House Chen's Yutian was a nobody at first, a small golden class early phase. It wasn't until recently that he made a name for himself, but it was an ironic one. People said that he was trying to steal Yufeng's woman right after he broke through to the early phase of Mystic class, and that he was heavily injured and crippled. But no one would have thought that Yutian would become a Mystic late phase peak and appear at the noble house meeting like this. Now, even an idiot would know that Yutian came prepared, and that he wasn't just hot-blooded. Of course, these people were just shocked and envious, but Elder Chen was shaking with excitement. He remembered what Yutian said to him on the phone a few days ago. Grandpa, I will be your pride. But he had done it. What did a Mystic late phase peak mean to House Chen? Chen Guanglan knew it all too well. This was a top noble house, and only House Yu had won. In other words, the rise of the Chen family was no longer a dream. Chen Guanglan wanted to laugh out loud. Her name was really good. Chen Guanglan had truly turned the tide. At the Chen family's most critical moment, her grandson had turned the tide for her and raised the Chen family's morale. Xiaofeng. Shuixing stood up abruptly, roaring in anger. Chen Yutian, you're a mystic late-phase peak? How dare you trick me? I'm cheating? Yutian smiled. When did I say that I'm not a mystic late-phase peak? Did I say that? I'm just saying that I'm not at the early phase of mystic class, nor am I at the peak of the early phase. You and your son are stupid, thinking that I'm weak. Yutian's question froze Shuixing's face. Yutian didn't say that he wasn't a mystic late-phase peak. It was a misunderstanding. But when Yu Shuixing saw Yufeng covered in blood, he had the urge to kill Chen Yutian. But now, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Shuixing really couldn't do anything to Yutian. The noble house meeting had its own rules, and if House Yu were to break the rules, how could they continue to be the leader in the future? With that thought, Shuixing decided to check on Yufeng's injuries first, and then find a chance to wipe out House Chen. Of course, he couldn't do it now. Not only could he not do it, but he had to be generous and let House Chen continue to be a noble house. That was the only way to show House Yu's generosity and selflessness. As for taking revenge on House Chen after that, he just had to do it in secret and not let others criticize him. Shuixing humphed coldly at the thought. He stood up and walked towards Yufeng, intending to check on Yufeng's injuries when he heard Lin Yi's faint voice. Since House Yu said that his life and death is up to the heavens, then you can send him to hell. Lin Yi looked at Yufeng and said to Yutian, because your name is Chen Yutian, that's why your life and death is up to the heavens. Haha, shield bro, you're so talented. Yushu was amused by Lin Yi's words. Yes, Yutian didn't plan on letting Yufeng. If it weren't for Lin Yi's help, he would have had to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. There was no way he would let Yufeng go so easily. And so, Yutian answered and flew towards Yufeng. Shuixing and Yutian were both mystic masters, and both of them were at the peak of the late phase of the mystic class. Yutian was closer to Yufeng, and so naturally, he reached Yufeng's side first. Yutian raised his foot, stomping down on Yufeng's left leg. The crisp sound of bone breaking was especially ear-piercing in the quiet meeting room, making Shuixing's heart tremble. Brat, don't you dare. You're looking to die. Yufeng has already lost, and you still want to kill him. But Yutian acted as if he didn't hear Shuixing's words. He raised his foot again and stomped down on Yufeng's right leg. Another crisp crack sounded, and Yufeng's right leg broke as well. Yufeng was finally woken up by the intense pain, but it was only for a split second before he fainted again with a howl of agony. Looks like the head of the Yu house is quite agitated. Shanshan, go talk to him, tell him to calm down. Lin Yi said to Lingshan. Alright. Lingshan didn't say anything, and went to block Shuixing's path, stopping him from getting close to Yutian. At that moment, Lingshan's mystic late-phase peak was on full display, and Shuixing's steps froze. Another mystic late-phase peak? Shuixing looked at Lingshan in disbelief. He never would have thought that mystic late-phase peak would become so worthless all of a sudden. These kids from noble houses who didn't show their strength before were all mystic late-phase peak now. At that moment, Xiangwen's face turned red with excitement as well. House Chen's Yutian had become a mystic late-phase peak, and all he could do was envy and jealousy. But this time, if House Chen was lucky enough to survive this, then the next unlucky ones would be House Song. He didn't think that his granddaughter would become a mystic late-phase peak as well. This was too shocking. His granddaughter had just broken through to mystic early phase not too long ago. And now she was a mystic late phase peak now? This span, and this leveling speed gave Song Xiangwen a surreal feeling. Was he dreaming? #target =_ blank. Chapter 1706. Chapter 1707. Another Earth class, however. What happened next proved to Song Xiangwen that he was not dreaming. Head Yu, you're the one who said that life and death is up to the heavens. Please don't break the rules of the noble house meeting. Lingshan hated Yufeng to the bone, and naturally wouldn't let Shuixing interfere. Song girl, do you really think that just because you're a mystic late phase peak like me, you're on the same level as me? Shuixing smiled coldly as he looked at Lingshan. I can tell just by looking at your skills. You've only just reached Mystic Late Phase Peak, and haven't stabilized it yet. It'll be too easy for me to beat you. However, as Yu Shuixing spoke, Yu Tian broke Yu Feng's left arm with a stomp. Shuixing's heart clenched as he threatened again. Don't force me to break a flower. Wu Qintian. Lin could tell that Lingshan wasn't a match for Shuixing alone. After all, Shuixing was a Mystic Late Phase Peak, and he'd stabilized his strength a long time ago. Lingshan, on the other hand, lacked battle experience. She might really be at a disadvantage here. And so Lin decided to let Qintian handle Shuixing. Go help him. Yes. Qintian stood up from the wheelchair with a whoosh, his whole body displaying the strength of a Mystic Late Phase Peak and a physical practitioner. One Mystic Late Phase Peak isn't enough. Would another Mystic Late Phase Peak be enough? Qintian's strength shocked everyone once more. The first two Mystic Late Phase Peak masters were already hard to accept, but Qintian was a dual practitioner, a Mystic Late Phase Peak. This made everyone feel like their heads were about to explode. Ha! Gonggao stood up abruptly. Haha, I knew it. Qintian wouldn't disappoint me. Ha 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 ha. He's a Mystic Late Phase Peak, and a physical practitioner now. House Wu will have nothing to worry about now. Truth be told, Shuixing was confident in taking on a newbie like Lingshan, but two Mystic Late Phase Peak? That wasn't something he could handle, let alone one who was a practitioner of both body and spirit. Lingshan and Qintian stood beside Shuixing, one on the left and one on the right. They'd attack him if he made any sudden movements. Crack! Yu Feng's right arm was broken by Yu Tian as well. This made Shuixing's mouth twitch a little, but there was nothing he could do. Yu Tian and three Mystic Late Phase Peak masters. How could he fight them? Unless Chen Yutian didn't stop after breaking Yu Feng's limbs. He kicked Yu Feng out of the meeting room's window with a whoosh. This was the highest floor of House Yu's auction house. Yu Feng flew out of the window, and if he landed on the ground, he'd definitely be smashed into meat paste. It wouldn't be a problem if he was conscious, but he was unconscious right now, and he'd probably die if he fell. Lin Feng. Shuixing didn't expect Yu Tian to be this ruthless, kicking Yu Feng out of the window. He wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Shuixing saw Yu Tian abuse Yu Feng, and he thought that the guy was just venting his anger, not taking his life. After all, if he wanted to kill Yu Feng, all he had to do was stomp on his head. Shuixing was angry, but he wasn't too worried. At least Yu Feng's life wasn't in danger, and as long as he was alive, he'd have his revenge one day. He didn't expect Yu Tian to do this all of a sudden. What he didn't know was that Yu Tian was giving Yu Feng a taste of his own medicine. Yu Tian had been kicked out of the window like this back then, just that it wasn't this high. Wah! You're looking to die, brat. Shuixing was completely furious. He didn't expect Yu Tian to be so ruthless. But he didn't know that he wanted Yu Feng to kill him back then, didn't he? Shuixing's eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the broken window. He knew that his son wasn't going to make it out of this alive. Falling from such a high place, without any qi to protect him, he'd die for sure. Shuixing took a deep breath, and quickly took out a pill from his pocket, throwing it into his mouth. In an instant, the qi around Shuixing's body exploded, and he went from Mystic Late Phase Peak to Earth Class Early Phase. What? Earth Class Early Phase? Chen Kuanglan, Xiangguan, and Gonggao were all taken aback. They'd never seen something as strange as this before. With just one pill, Shuixing went from Mystic Late Phase Peak to Earth Class Early Phase in one go. Ha 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 ha, you didn't expect this, did you? Since you've killed my son, then none of the families that participated in this shall leave this place alive. Shuixing seemed to have gone mad as he laughed at the sky. House Chun, House Song, House Wu, House Lu, you shall all die with my son. This was Shuixing's trump card, as well as his ultimate weapon. This was a pill that could instantly increase one's strength and potential. But it was an evil pill that came at the cost of one's lifespan. This pill was made by the Everyday and Everyday sect, and Yu Shuixing had gotten it from the Hidden House Yu. No one in the Hidden House Yu would use a pill like this that would damage their strength, so giving one to Yu Shuixing wasn't a big deal. After all, this pill had side effects. A normal person could instantly become a golden class after using it, and a golden class could become a mystic after using it, and so on and so forth. But the price was huge. A normal person had to pay 5 years of lifespan to become a golden class, and a golden class had to pay 10 years to become a mystic. A mystic, on the other hand, had to pay 30 years of lifespan. As long as they didn't step into sky class, a practitioner's lifespan was the same as a normal person's. They might live a little longer than a normal person, but not by much. As a result, 30 years of lifespan was fatal. How many years did a person have in their life? One pill reduced 30 years of lifespan. And how many 30 years could a person have? And because of the exhaustion, a normal person would be fine, but a practitioner would drop from mystic to golden class after the effect wore off. Depending on how much energy was used up, the practitioner would drop from mystic to golden class early phase. How could someone from the hidden house use such a huge side effect? #target=_blank. Chapter 1707. Shueishing, on the other hand, was extremely grateful to Shueishing, treating it like a treasure. Li, now that his third brother was dead, his nephew crippled, and his son dead, what was the point of living anymore? Under the impulse of hatred, he was willing to lose 30 years of his life to consume the pill. An earth class. He's an earth class. Chen Kuanglan was the most worried of all. Shueishing's first target was Yutian, and so she made a quick decision. Yutian, run. Run. Where to? Not a single one of you can run. Shueishing smiled coldly. You want to run in front of an earth class? Chen Yutian, I'll bury you with Fenger first. Earth class, what's so great about that? Plus, you're a fake earth class, using pills to level up. Lin Yi, who'd been standing at the door, finally moved, walking towards Shueishing as he spoke. The others didn't know what was going on, but Lin Yi wasn't a stranger to Shueishing's sudden increase in strength. Heibao had gone through something similar, and it seemed that Shueishing had used a similar method. Lin Yi, even if you're a mystic late phase peak, you 4 mystic late phase peak masters are no match for me. Shueishing was evidently more reckless than Boss Yu, and he was more willing to risk his life than Boss Yu. Boss Yu was scared like a mouse when he faced Lin Yi, a mystic mid-phase peak, but this Shueishing wasn't afraid of 4 mystic late phase peak masters at all. But the dragon's 9 sons were all different. Even if Boss Yu and Shueishing were from the same family, their personalities were completely different. Of course, if Shueishing were to fight Lin Yi and the other mystic late phase peak masters with his earth class strength, he'd have a good chance of winning. Of course, the premise was that Lin Yi didn't have a trump card like the energy bomb. If he did, then even an earth class would die easily. Holy Hall, what if I'm not? Lin Yi asked. No, you're even more hopeless. It looks like you're the mastermind behind all of this. I'll start with you then, Shueishing said as he flew towards Lin Yi. Wait a minute. Before we start fighting, I want to ask you something, Lin Yi said. Haha, if you have any last words, you can leave them here. But I can't promise that everyone here will help you, because everyone related to you will die today. Shueishing laughed proudly. Holy Church, I'd like to ask, has your house you ever been a bodyguard for an international drug gang? Lin Yi stared at Shueishing as he pressed. Shueishing paused after hearing Lin Yi's words. He didn't think that Lin Yi would ask this question. He thought that Lin Yi wanted to say something harsh or something. Answer me, did you? Lin Yi asked. How is this possible? Our house you is a legitimate business. Why would we be a bodyguard for some drug gang? Shueishing denied flatly, but his eyes flashed with shock and suspicion. He was trying to figure out how Lin Yi knew about this. You didn't. Lin Yi had been an assassin before, and his psychological analysis was even better than Shueishing's. He could tell that Shueishing was lying just by looking at his eyes. You don't need to deny it. I have 2 friends. One is Yang Huijuan, injured by your house you, his meridians broken, and he almost lost his life. The other is Armadillo. We don't know if he's alive or dead. What's the point of saying all that? If you want to punish us, then show me your strength. Shueishing didn't admit or deny it. It wasn't a big secret that House Yu did some shady things under their glamour, after all, and the other noble houses knew a little about it. Otherwise, Huaijuan wouldn't have been able to trace the clues back to House Yu so easily. Young Huaijuan, what happened back then? Was it your House Yu's doing? Elder Yang Daocha stood up abruptly, glaring at Shuixing. What happened to Huaijuan was a huge blow to House Yang. But they hadn't been able to find the culprit after all these years. But with Lin Yi's words, Elder Yang naturally understood what was going on. I didn't say anything. Shuixing wasn't afraid of Elder Yang at all. He humphed coldly. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me who else was involved, and I'll make sure your House Yu isn't destroyed. Lin Yi walked towards Shuixing, his voice lifeless, as if it came from hell. Why would I remember something like that? What's the point of saying so much? Winner takes all. And if he's injured or dead, it can only be said that he's not strong enough. Shuixing said. Fine, then you can die now. Lin Yi shook his head in disappointment. Actually, I don't feel any sense of accomplishment beating a fake Earth class like you. Shuixing paused. He was about to say that Lin Yi was boasting when Lin Yi's aura burst forth. Shuixing's eyes went wide as he felt the pressure. You're an Earth class early phase. Yeah, that's why I said that beating a fake Earth class, like you, doesn't feel any sense of accomplishment at all. Lin Yi shook his head. Shuixing's expression changed. To be honest, he never would have thought that Lin Yi was an Earth class. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used the pill to forcefully raise his strength to Earth class early phase. After taking the pill, he would enter a state of madness. For a moment, his strength would be stronger than a real Earth rank early phase. Then he would be weakened for a month. He would become weaker and weaker, until he regained his original strength. Then he would start to drop levels. But at this moment he was the strongest. However, facing a true Earth class like Lin Yi, Shuixing instinctively lost his confidence. He didn't know if he could beat Lin Yi. You were just a mystic mid-phase peak before, and now you're an Earth class early phase? You must have used some unorthodox methods to get to that level. We're not that far apart. We don't know who's going to win yet. Shuixing gritted his teeth. He couldn't back down now. He could only press forward. Kid, give me your life. But after saying that, Shuixing didn't charge at Lin Yi. Instead, he turned and charged at Yutian. Before dealing with Lin Yi, Shuixing decided to kill Yutian first. This way, no matter who won or lost, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Target =_ blank. Chapter 1708. Earth Class Technique Frenzy Fist. Lin Yi was an assassin, and his eyes and speed were much better than normal practitioners. How could Lin Yi not understand Shuixing's intentions when he saw him suddenly attack Yutian? Lin Yi had wanted to use Shuixing to practice, but it seemed like that wasn't going to work. Lin Yi's first move was an Earth Class technique. This Frenzy Fist was a technique Faubert had practiced before. There were only the first 3 forms, but it was more than enough for Lin Yi right now. The first 3 forms were prepared for early phase Earth class masters. These few days, Lin Yi had been practicing Frenzy Fist by himself, but it was his first time using it against an enemy. Shuixing's face froze. He didn't think that Lin Yi had practiced a technique. One had to know that the biggest difference between Earth class and Mystic class was the training of their techniques. Shuixing was an Earth class fake, and he had relied on elixirs to force his way up. How could he have learned any techniques? At most, his strength had reached the early phase of Earth class. Or with the help of the elixirs, he could temporarily reach the peak of the early phase. If it was a clash of pure strength, Lin Yi might not be Shuixing's opponent. But it was a different story with techniques. Martial skills were different from ordinary martial arts. Before reaching the Earth rank, the internal martial arts masters relied on condensing their Zhen Qi into their fists and feet. They relied purely on the amount of Zhen Qi and its tyrannical degree to attack the enemy. However, techniques could bring out the full potential of Qi. To put it bluntly, it was turning Qi into a form, much more domineering than pure Qi. Shuixing was from a noble house, and naturally, he'd heard of techniques. Only freelancers like Lin Yi hadn't heard of them before. But now that the newcomer had caught up, a normal Frenzy Fist was enough to make Shuixing feel like he was facing a great enemy. He couldn't care less about attacking Yutian anymore. And after hearing Lin Yi's roar, he panicked and dodged, moving away from Lin Yi's attack range. However, after Shuixing ran away, Lin Yi's fist didn't reach him. Lin Yi was still standing where he was, and this made Shuixing confused. Didn't Lin Yi use an Earth class technique? Why did it look like nothing had happened? Sorry, I failed. Lin Yi sweated. Since Faubert wasn't an Earth class, he couldn't demonstrate it himself, so Lin Yi had to figure it out himself. This was his first time in battle, and he'd fail if he wasn't careful. You're messing with me? Shuixing subconsciously thought that Lin Yi didn't know any techniques, and was just bluffing to scare him. Holy hall, no. I just reached Earth class not long ago, and I just learned this new technique. I'm not too familiar with it, so I couldn't use it. I'm sorry. Lin Yi said apologetically. Stand there and don't move, I'll use it again. See if it works. Fuck. Do you think I'm an idiot? Shuixing was pissed off by Lin Yi's words. Did Lin Yi think he was a 3-year-old? Stand there and don't move? Wait for him to hit me? But Lin Yi didn't waste time with him. He suddenly pushed out with both fists, yelling, Frenzy fist! Shuixing was so scared that he ran away from where he was standing, faster than a mouse. Hiding on the side, Shuixing subconsciously looked at where Lin Yi was attacking, but realized that Lin Yi still hadn't used any techniques. Lin Yi stood where he was, and the place Lin Yi attacked didn't seem to be damaged at all. Lin Yi, you're messing with me? Shuixing was completely enraged. He believed that Lin Yi had just learned the technique, and wasn't familiar with it yet, so he hadn't used it yet. But he didn't use it the second time? Wasn't this bullshit? How could Shuixing believe this? Anyone else would suspect that Lin Yi was just trying to scare him. I'm not messing with you, I really didn't use it. Lin Yi wasn't lying to Shuixing. Lin Yi didn't have a target before, so he'd been practicing the techniques in his jade space. It was his first time using it against an enemy, so he'd made 2 mistakes. You're looking to die. Shuixing raged. Wait, it'll work this time. Lin Yi said before roaring at Shuixing again. Frenzy fist. Shuixing didn't really believe it, but he still subconsciously dodged to the side. Lin Yi was a cunning bastard. What if he really didn't use it before and used it again? Unfortunately, Lin Yi didn't use it this time. Shuixing was once again being played like a monkey. This time, however, Lin Yi was truly playing him. Lin Yi didn't plan on using Frenzy Fist at all, and after 2 failed attempts, Lin Yi gave up on using Frenzy Fist and started compressing the energy bomb. To tell the truth, Lin Yi felt a bit helpless when he switched to this move. It was his only trump card, and it was a bit pitiful. He'd used it from Golden class to Earth class, but he was still using it. Lin Yi couldn't wait to find some new trump cards. But the stone door to the 2nd floor wasn't open yet. The first layer of the Art of Dragon Mastery had been studied by Lin Yi to its fullest, and he couldn't find anything else he could use. And so, Lin Yi could only start compressing the energy, preparing to use Oscillation Fist to attack Shuixing. Of course, he didn't show it on his face as he tricked Shuixing. Who the hell would believe you? Shuixing humphed as he raised his fist at Lin Yi. Brat, I'll pay with my life today. Lin Yi had already started compressing the energy in his body, but it wasn't enough time for him to hurt anyone. He could only raise his fist to meet Shuixing's attack. Bam! The 2 fists collided in midair, creating a loud sound. This was the sound of chi colliding between 2 Earth-class masters. Lin Yi took 2 steps back, while Shuixing didn't move an inch from where he stood. Lin Yi's face flushed red, then paled as a trickle of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Puffed. Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of blood, shocking the people who'd thought highly of Lin Yi. They didn't think that Lin Yi, a true Earth-class early phase, wouldn't be able to defeat Shuixing, a pseudo-Earth-class early phase who'd relied on medicine. In fact, Shuixing was burning his own life force in exchange for strength. In the early stages of the pill's effect, Shuixing was able to maintain his Mystic class early phase peak, which meant that he was only 1 step away from Mystic class early phase peak. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1709. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had just leveled up to the early phase of Mystic Division, and there was still a long way to go before he reached the peak of the early phase. It was clear who had the upper hand. In terms of pure strength, Lin Yi would definitely be at a disadvantage. Although Lin Yi had the ability to fight above his level, the problem was that Lin Yi was multitasking, and the chi in his body was split into two parts. One was used to compress, and the other was used to fight Shueising. Naturally, he would be at a disadvantage. This meant that Lin Yi was a bit weaker than Shueising. If it weren't for Lin Yi taking 3 steps back and mitigating the attack from Shueising's chi, Lin Yi would have been hurt even more. But now, Lin Yi had actually suffered some internal injuries that were neither light nor heavy. Ha 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 ha. And here I thought you were, showing off in front of me right after reaching Earth class early phase. Why aren't you showing off now? Spitting blood? Shueising was overjoyed to see Lin Yi spitting blood. This meant that he was stronger than Lin Yi after taking the pill. It was worth it. You're in Earth class early phase full circle? Lin Yi pretended to be surprised. Holy hall, of course. Do you think I'm just taking the pill for nothing? Shueising looked at Lin Yi proudly. Victory was within his grasp now, and his mood was getting better. You really are an idiot, calling yourself an old man in your 40s? Everyone else is acting young, you're acting old. Lin Yi said mockingly. Whatever you say, I've got you. Shueising looked around at the people in the meeting room. Why aren't you talking? Are you scared? Why would you get involved with Lin Yi if you knew? Song Xiangguan Wu Gonggao. Tell your people to stop now, and I'll spare their lives. In fact, Shueising was afraid that Lin Yi would get desperate and attack him with 3 mystic late phase peak and an Earth class early phase. Although he was strong and wasn't afraid of 4 mystic late phase peak masters, there was still an Earth class like Lin Yi. It was hard for him to control, so he spoke first to split Lin Yi's alliance. What? Are you scared? Are you afraid that the 4 of us will join forces to deal with you? Lin Yi asked. Scared? I'm just not willing to take things too far on account of our many years of friendship. As for you, I'll kill you even if you beg on your knees. Shueising glared at Lin Yi, wanting to eat him alive. Chen Yutian was the same. He killed Yu Feng, so there was no room for reconciliation between him and House Yu. Oh, that's exactly what I want to do, Lin Yi said. I'm going to use a martial skill. This time, I'm going to change to a different martial skill. Prepare to receive my attack. Ha! You want to change? You haven't even mastered one martial skill yet. And you want to change? Shueising couldn't help but laugh at Lin Yi's words. This Lin Yi sure was funny and stubborn. He'd failed 3 times already, and he still wanted to try? And he wanted to change to a new martial skill. Did he think martial skills were that easy to learn? Shueising may not have practiced martial skills before, but he knew how difficult it was. His big brother, Yu Huoxing, was an Earth class, but he still hadn't found a suitable martial skill, let alone Lin Yi. Yes, this is called oscillating fist. Lin Yi said, come receive my attack. I'll receive it right here. Let's see what you can do to me. Shueising laughed, not putting Lin Yi in his eyes at all. It wasn't that he was arrogant, but he didn't believe that Lin Yi could use any martial skills at all. If he could, Lin Yi would have used it a long time ago. Why would he wait until now? Normally speaking, who would use a half-baked martial skill to face an enemy first, and then use the one they were familiar with? Wasn't that insane? As far as Shueising was concerned, Lin Yi's so-called second martial skill was either a lie, or it was even worse than the first one. It was a useless bomb. Lin Yi's chi bombs were usually used to win by surprise. If he were to face an enemy, and the enemy was a prepared opponent, then Lin Yi wouldn't be able to win by surprise. After all, Lin Yi's chi bombs were slow to compress, and they were troublesome to release. He had to aim at the enemy, and if the enemy dodged, then all his efforts would be wasted. It could be said that Lin Yi's previous chi bombs were all used by surprise, when the enemy wasn't prepared. Shueising, on the other hand, was different. Judging from Lin Yi's previous failures, Shueising was a careful man. This was a bit like Boss Yu, and so when Lin Yi used his chi bombs, he had to use some tricks. If Shueising dodged it, then it'd be troublesome. Shueising and Lin Yi were both Earth class early phase, and Shueising was a bit stronger. Lin Yi didn't have much confidence in fighting him head-on, so he had to use some tricks. Self-created Earth class technique, oscillating fist. Lin Yi said as he put his hands together, slowly pushing them towards Shueising. Of course, Lin Yi didn't actually use the energy bomb this time, because the time was too short, and Lin Yi hadn't finished compressing it yet. Lin Yi also wanted to see if Shuixing was really going to stand there and take the attack, or if he was just saying it. The results proved that Shuixing really didn't dodge this time. He stood where he was, looking at Lin Yi mockingly. Self-created technique? Who do you think you are? You're an ancient heavenly class? He could even create his own martial skills? Aren't you embarrassed to say that? Don't tell me you just created it on a whim, and then failed again because you're not familiar with it? I didn't create it today, I did it a few days ago. Lin Yi replied honestly. I did fail, but you said it's because I'm not familiar with it yet. I'll just try again. Shuixing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't tell me you're trying to stall for time? You want to try again? Are you waiting for the effect of the pill to wear off before you attack me? Ugh. No. Lin Yi shook his head. I don't care if you are or not. I'm not afraid to tell you that the effect of my pill needs a month to wear off. If you have the guts, then stay here and use your technique for a month. Let's see if you can do it. Shuixing smiled coldly, as if he'd seen through Lin Yi's thoughts. I really don't. Lin Yi shook his head, and with the same hand gesture, he sent out the energy bomb he'd just condensed. Earth-class technique, oscillating fist. Shuixing curled his lips, about to say something to mock Lin Yi, but the next moment, he felt a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas striking his chest. Chapter 17:10. Shuixing was startled and tried to dodge, but it was too late. Lin Yi's chi bomb hit his chest with a loud boom. Shuixing felt as if his chest had been hit by a landmine, and the huge force was pushing him away. Shuixing wanted to stay where he was after exchanging punches with Lin Yi. How embarrassing would that be if he were to fly away? But Shuixing's thinking was too simple. It wasn't as simple as losing face anymore. The explosion sent Shuixing flying away in an instant, and since he'd been standing where he was, trying to take the blast head-on, he was in an even worse state now. The explosion was even more severe than before. If he'd flown away with the initial blast, he'd only be injured at most, since Lin Yi's bomb didn't have a lot of chi in it. Lin Yi had only condensed a mid-sized bomb, and it would only be able to lightly injure Shuixing. Lin Yi could then take advantage of the situation, and take advantage of the situation. But because of Shuixing's resistance, he became the center of the explosion, and the huge force blew a hole in his chest. His sternum was blown to smithereens, and his organs were all a mess, turning into a pile of bloody meat. Shuixing didn't even have time to scream, before he fell to the ground, killed by Lin Yi's bomb. There was a huge hole in his chest, and blood was still flowing out. It was a frightening sight. Holy Church! Holy Church! This dramatic turn of events caused everyone present to be dumbfounded. They'd gone from having high hopes for Lin Yi at first, to not having high hopes for Lin Yi later on, and now Shuixing's tragic death. It had all happened so quickly that they weren't used to it. Of course, these people were shocked, but Lin Yi was even more shocked. How did Shuixing die just like that? His true chi bomb had clearly blown him away at most. At most, it would have injured him slightly, but it would not have killed him. As long as Shuixing was injured, as long as Lin Yi dealt with him properly, he'd have a chance of killing Shuixing. But Shuixing didn't dodge, he just stood there gritting his teeth, and got himself killed? He's dead. Lin Yi walked over, and looked at Shuixing on the ground. He couldn't be more dead. There was a huge hole in Shuixing's chest, and his heart had been smashed to smithereens. It would be a miracle if he could survive like that. Lin Yi's words brought silence to the arena. No one dared to criticize Lin Yi right now. Even if Lin Yi's question was a little funny, no one thought it was funny. Shuixing had been killed by Lin Yi, and that was a fact. Who would dare piss Lin Yi off at a time like this? Jiang Wen had been paying attention to Lin Yi ever since he entered the arena, and it was only now that Lin Yi had killed Lin Yi that he let out a long sigh, knowing that his loss wasn't unjust. Lin Yi was an Earth-class early phase, and dealing with the fake Lin Yi was a piece of cake. Plus, he'd underestimated this opponent too much. At first, Jiang Wen thought that Lin Yi was just a random bodyguard. From his perspective, Lin Yi wasn't on the same level as the noble houses, and he only needed a few tricks to deal with him. But today, after seeing Lin Yi's power, Jiang Wen understood that if he wanted to deal with Lin Yi in the future, simple tricks wouldn't be enough. He'd need something even stronger. It's all over. Lin Yi sighed. It was a little regretful that he didn't manage to get the pangolin's whereabouts. But Lin Yi understood that even if Shuixing hadn't died, he wouldn't have remembered about the pangolin. In his eyes, the pangolin was just a small character. Why would he pay attention to something like that? So with Shuixing's death, Lin Yi could see it as revenge for the pangolin. Lin Yi walked quickly to the meeting table and sat on the main seat that Shuixing had been sitting on. He looked around at the heads of the houses. Asterisk, 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 these people were getting goosebumps from Lin Yi's stare. They all lowered their heads, not daring to meet Lin Yi's eyes. Only Elder Lu Jin, who nodded at Lin Yi in a friendly manner. The atmosphere in the meeting room became a little strange. Everyone was here to participate in the noble house meeting, but now that House Yu was dead, there was no point in holding the meeting anymore. However, no one dared to stand up and leave. Who knew if Lin Yi would suddenly attack them? He even dared to kill Shuixing. What was there left to do? For big houses, 5 small houses, only 8 left now. Lin Yi looked at the people at the table, his eyes finally landing on Dr. Kang's face. Dr. Kang had long since lost his composure. He felt like he was sitting on a bed of needles. He and Lin Yi could be considered old enemies. He'd started a feud with Lin Yi during the birthday banquet, and he didn't doubt that Lin Yi would kill him on the spot. Dr. Kang, why are you still sitting here? Scram. Lin Yi said faintly as he looked at Dr. Kang. I'll leave now. Dr. Kang stood up, as if he'd just been pardoned. He brought Kang Guifeng with him, ready to leave. He didn't even think about leveling up to a noble house anymore. Being able to keep his life was already a blessing. Wait, take your Xiao family with you. You can all scram. Lin Yi pointed at the 2 Xiao family brothers. Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben were Lin Yi's old enemies, but even the hidden house pie didn't dare cause trouble for Lin Yi. What right did they have to question Lin Yi's words? The 2 of them looked at each other and stood up dejectedly. Jiang Wen, I don't need to call names, right? Lin Yi looked at Jiang Wen and in Mingyue's direction. Lin Yi, we've always had a pretty good relationship. Did you forget that you were the one who gave me ideas to pursue Ming Yao? Jiang Wen asked, putting on a fake smile. From today onwards, the 4 big houses and 5 small houses will become history. Lin Yi didn't answer Jiang Wen's question. The old noble house structure no longer exists. I need to reorganize it, but Jiang Wen, I don't want to bring you along. It's fine. Housen isn't good at practicing. When we were a noble house, we were just there to make up the numbers. Since Lin Yi says so, then we'll leave. Jiang Wen understood that a wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. He stood up and prepared to leave. To be honest, Jiang Wen didn't really care about being a noble house. What Housen was doing was helping the firewolves, so it didn't matter if they were a noble house or not. Chapter 17:11. House Kong, Xiao family, and In family left the meeting room. Other than the dead House Yu, only House Chen, House Song, House Lu, House Wu, House Yang, and House Sun were left. Chapter 17:13. Inch from today onwards, the title of noble house is gone. Does anyone have any objections? Lin Yi looked at the heads of the noble houses. No. Lu Jin, who was the first to agree. He knew that the title of noble house was useless now. What happened today would soon spread out, and the leader and judge of noble houses, House Yu, would become a joke in history. These noble houses were all chosen by House Yu. And now that House Yu was gone, what noble house was left? The houses that were close to Lin Yi, even without the title of noble house, were still powerful. On the other hand, the houses that were enemies with Lin Yi, like the 3 that just left, were destined to lose their former glory, even if they still had the title of noble house. Of course not. The era of House Yu is over, and us old guys should step down. House Wu will be in charge of Qintian from now on, and I'm going to focus on my training. Wu Gonggao was a sly old fox, and he knew that his grandson recognized Lin Yi as his boss. It didn't matter if House Wu was still a noble house or not. They wouldn't be at a disadvantage. And so Wu Gongao agreed with Lin Yi. Saint, I'm fine with it too. Chen Kuanglan followed. House Chen will be in Yutian's hands. I heard that you and Huaijuan used to be teammates. Of course, the Yang family agrees. Yang Daocha also expressed his opinion. You're Shanshan's boyfriend, right? Then we're a family, of course. I'll leave Shanshan in your care from now on. And we House Song hope that you can help us as well. Song Xiangwen was even more sly, guessing the relationship between the two from the moment Lin Yi and Lingshan entered the meeting room together. That can't be right? Old Song. He is obviously my Jingyi's boyfriend. How did he become your Shanshan's boyfriend? Old Master Sun heard Song Xiangwen's words and immediately became unhappy. Previously, he was very dissatisfied with Sun Jingyi's private boyfriend. Although he heard that Sun Jingyi's boyfriend was a wandering cultivator and a mystic stage master, he only agreed to let Sun Jingyi bring Lin Yi to meet him when Lin Yi agreed to marry into her family. But now, Old Man Sun had met Lin Yi, and it was under such circumstances. As for the so-called son-in-law, Old Man Sun didn't want to mention it. Now, even a fool could see how popular Lin Yi was and how useful he was to these families. Now, all the noble houses were showing their goodwill to Lin Yi, and Lin Yi had already become the core existence that replaced House Yu. So Elder Sun didn't want to be outdone. Before, he wanted Sun Jingyi to see if there were any young men in the noble house meeting. Wasn't this Lin Yi a young man? The young man was right in front of them. How is that possible? Shanshan, tell me, is your boyfriend this Master Lin Yi? Xiangwen asked Lingshan. Jingyi, isn't he the boyfriend you were talking about? Elder Sun didn't back down. Lingshan and Sun Jingyi, on the other hand, were blushing. Neither of them were Lin Yi's girlfriends. Lingshan was pursuing Lin Yi, and Sun Jingyi was pretending. How were they supposed to answer this? I'm Shield Bro's small wife. Plus, Shield Bro has 3 wives, 2 big wives and 2 small wives. What are you two fighting for? What are you two fighting for? They're just queuing up. Yushu said. Ha! Both Song Xiangwen and Old Man Sun were stunned. They didn't know why Lin Yi called him Shield Bro. But the person Yushu was talking about was most likely Lin Yi. And Lin Yi already had 4 wives? His granddaughter had to queue up? Xiangwen frowned at the thought. How could House Song's granddaughter be someone else's small wife? She had to queue up. Elder Sun, on the other hand, had the same thought. He looked at Jingyi suspiciously. Man, it's good to have a granddaughter of this age. I want to marry my granddaughter to Lin Yi, but there's none. Wu Chintian sighed. His words were like a wake-up call. Song Xiangwen and Old Master Sun immediately came back to their senses. Yes, Lin Yi was an earth class. He was on the same level as the masters of the hidden houses. Marrying his granddaughter to him wasn't a bad thing. And now, it seemed like Lin Yi had replaced House Yu as the strongest force among the noble houses. Although he was only one person, he wasn't alone. He had a few followers, and they were all heirs of the noble houses. Fine, I'll queue up first, Xiangwen said quickly, afraid that he wouldn't even have the chance to queue up. Why do you have to queue up first? House Sun isn't that bad either. Elder Sun wasn't happy. Alright, you two old masters, stop fighting. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Was he the hot commodity now? But Lin Yi didn't come here to find a wife. He wanted to build up his own force. And so Lin Yi waved his hand to stop the two. Shanshan, Jingyi and I are good friends. As for relationships, let's just let it be. Let's not talk about it for now. What I want to say today is that the noble houses are cancelled. But I'm preparing to set up a practitioners' association. I want to invite all the noble houses to participate. What do you all think? I've already said that Chen Tian will be in charge of House Wu from now onwards. I won't participate. Gongao said immediately. No matter what Lin Yi suggested, he would agree. Gongao wasn't an idiot. Chen Tian went from a golden class to a mystic late-phase peak spiritual practitioner. He wouldn't believe it if he said that it wasn't because of Lin Yi. And so, House Wu naturally agreed with Lin Yi's decision. Behind Gongao, Wu Chengdi, on the other hand, had a look of disappointment in his eyes. Ever since Chen Tian revealed his mystic late-phase peak strength, he had been disappointed again and again. The gap between him and Chen Tian was too big. He would never be able to catch up to Chen Tian. But he didn't want to accept it. Why was Chintian so lucky? How did he get to meet such a good boss like Lin Yi? How did he get his strength? Why did all the good things belong to Chintian? Ever since he was young, whether it was in House Wu or outside, it was the same. Chapter 17:12. And so, Chindi was deeply dissatisfied, but he knew where he stood. He could only lower his head and keep quiet. Holy Halchindi didn't understand why Chintian was so lucky, and why was fate so unfair. He wanted to turn things around, but under the current circumstances, he could only swallow his anger and pretend to be happy, with a fake smile on his face. House Chun naturally has nothing to say. Yutian has grown up, and will let him make the decisions. Chen Kuanglan was very happy today. This sudden change made him realize that his grandson had not only grown up, but most importantly, he had met a benefactor. He could finally relax. House Song's boy hasn't grown up yet, but Shanshang can still make the decisions for now. Song Xiangwen expressed his support as well. Even an idiot could tell that Lin Yi's Cultivators Association was similar to the noble houses of old, just with a different name. As long as one was a member of the association, they would still be like a noble house in the future. And with Lin Yi's protection, it would be even more glorious than before. And the number of practitioners and strength would increase. We don't have any objections. We don't have practitioners. But if Miracle Dr. Lin doesn't mind, we're willing to join as well. Jinhu smiled. Miracle Dr. Lin has a good relationship with my boss, Lu Tianyi. I'm sure there won't be any problems in communicating with him. House Yang has no objections. We'll let Yang Huaijuan make the decisions in the future. It's time for me to retire, Yang Daocha said. Now only House Sun was left. Although the old man of House Sun was in favor of the idea, when the families expressed their stance, they sent a person who could maintain their relationship with Lin Yi. In other words, it was the spokesperson of the family in the Practitioners Association. In fact, it was equivalent to the existence of the head of the family. However, elder Sun couldn't decide who to let take on this role. Although Sun Jingyi's surname was Sun, she didn't have the same surname. She was different from Song Lingshan. The male heir of House Song was too young to take on the role, so he let Song Lingshan take the role temporarily. However, the two males of the Sun family weren't young anymore. If Sun Jingyi were to play this role, there would be no reason to replace her in the future. This put Old Master Sun in a difficult position. For a moment, he couldn't make a decision. He looked up at Sun Jingyi. Sun Jingyi had roughly guessed her grandfather's difficulties, but she didn't care about it. She didn't want to control the Sun family. So he smiled and said, Ikai, haven't you met Lin Yi and got along well with him? In the future, you will be responsible for contacting the Sun family. There are too many things in my company. I don't have time. Sanctuary. Okay. Sun Ikai was overjoyed. He didn't think that Sun Jingyi would speak up for him. In fact, with his position in House Sun, it was quite awkward. There was a big brother above him, and he was a straightforward person. He wasn't suitable to be the head of the house. However, with one sentence from Sun Jingyi, the awkwardness was solved. Sun Ikai, this is the third time we meet, right? Lin Yi smiled. Yes, what should I call you in the future? Brother-in-law. Sun Ikai smiled. It was funny when he thought about it. When he first met Lin Yi, he said that he would protect Lin Yi and make Lin Yi look for him if there was any trouble. But in the blink of an eye, Lin Yi had replaced House Yu and became the #1 practitioner in the common world. Just call me Lin Yi. Lin Yi said lightly. Your sister is a smart person. I'm just her shield. When there's trouble, she looks for me. When there's nothing, she doesn't look for me. It seems like I'm fated to be a shield bro. Lin Yi's words made the atmosphere lighten up. Everyone finally understood why Yushu called Lin Yi shield bro. So this was what she meant. Then, I'll call you boss like Chintian and the others. Sun Ikai decided to be the same as everyone else. Since Chintian and Yutian were calling him that, then he should be calling him that. Ha! Lin Yi smiled. Actually, the reason why I set up this guild is simple. It's to unite everyone. And I'll help someone in your family level up quickly. I believe you've all seen the changes in Chintian, Yutian and Lingshan's strength. But each family only has one spot. We'll consider adding more in the future. Lenny could only help his confidence level up. Naturally, Lenny wouldn't use the art of dragon mastery on anyone else. It was a matter of loyalty, and if word got out, it'd be bad for his own safety. Everyone suspected that Lenny had something to do with Chuntian, Yutian, and Lingshan's sudden increase in strength. But hearing it from Lin Yi's own mouth was still shocking and regretful. Each family only had one spot. This meant that only Chuntian, Chen Yutian, Lingshan, Huaijuan, and Sun Jingyi could receive Lin Yi's help. As for House Lu, they didn't have any practitioners yet, so they didn't think too much about it. The one who felt the most regretful was Sun Yikai. He knew that Lin Yi would definitely give the spot to Sun Jingyi. Out of all the representatives, only his situation was special. But it didn't matter. Lin Yi said that he could add more spots in the future. This meant that he still had a chance. Looking at the excited faces, Lin Yi continued. Actually, I'm sure you all know who I am. I'm a doctor, but my other identity is a refiner. This is also why I can help people level up so quickly. But my energy and level are limited. I can't do it all the time. Lin Yi attributed his art of dragon mastery to the fact that he was an elixir refiner. His identity as an elixir refiner had already been exposed once when he was hiding in House Tang. So it wasn't a big deal. After all, elixir refiners were rare, but it wasn't a big deal. But if Lin Yi said that he could transfer pure qi to others, it'd be a big deal if word got out. Lin Yi was afraid of being captured and used as a lab rat. But a refiner was different. There was no point in capturing one, because any practitioner with a brain would know that not everyone could become a refiner. There was no point in capturing one. Moreover, there was an unwritten rule in the Jianghu. An alchemist's status was a notch above others. No family or sect would kidnap an alchemist and force him to refine pills for them. This was equivalent to breaking the rules of the Jianghu. Chapter 17:13. Since you can take it, then fine. My sect is stronger than yours, so I'll take the refiner from your hands. It'll be a mess. Plus, refiners didn't usually work alone, but as a group. There were almost no rogue cultivators who became alchemists. Almost every alchemist had a master or sect, and their masters or sects all had powerful connections. This was also the reason why no one dared to force alchemists to become alchemists. Holy Church and so Lin Yi made up the identity of a refiner, so that his opponents wouldn't notice him. Refiner. After Lin Yi announced his identity, everyone present was in an uproar. Although alchemists were famous in the ancient times, and almost every sect had dealings with alchemists, the noble houses and hidden houses, especially the normal noble houses, had never seen an alchemist in their entire lives. They were existences of legends, and now, one was sitting in front of them. Chuntian, Yutian, and Lingshan didn't react much, since they already knew about Lin Yi's plan. The others, however, were different, especially Sun Jingyi. She realized that she didn't understand Lin Yi at all. Lin Yi was an elixir refiner? Wasn't this too shocking? Had he been in all kinds of industries before? House Lu, on the other hand, was enlightened. Lu Tianyi sighed. No wonder Miracle Dr. Lin's medical skills are so amazing. To be able to create such a shocking pill like the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. So he's a refiner. House Lu knew that the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing was made by Lin Yi. But the other noble houses didn't. Now that they heard that the pill that had caused such a commotion at the auction was made by Lin Yi, realization dawned on them. As expected, Xuemin didn't have that kind of skill. They hadn't seen him produce any special pills in the past few years, and he'd always been suppressed by Dr. Kang's name. It was only recently that he'd suddenly become famous, and it was all because of Lin Yi. Alright, if there's nothing else, you may leave. I'll contact the people in charge of the other houses. Lin Yi didn't really care about the crowd's shock. His main goal here was to destroy House Yu, and secondly, to gather the strength of the other noble houses. At this point, Lin Yi had no more obstacles on the level of noble houses. He could calm down and think about the hidden House Yu and House Zhao's matters. The meeting of the noble houses ended abruptly on the first day. It felt a little anticlimactic, but the hearts of the people who came were heavy and happy at the same time. The power structure of the noble houses was about to change. House Xiao, House En, and House Kong were kicked out of the alliance by Lin Yi, and they wouldn't let it go easily. St. Hall, but no matter what, this wasn't something they had to worry about. They had to think about the benefits of their own houses. Now that House Yu had been replaced by Lin Yi, they didn't lose anything at all. Instead, they gained even more benefits, especially if they could make friends with Lin Yi, an Earth-class early-phase alchemist. This was a good thing no matter what. In a hotel not far from House Yu's auction, the two brothers from family Xiao and House Kang's Dr. Kong, as well as Kong Guifeng, sat there. Although the two houses had some conflicts and disagreements before, they were all in the same predicament now. They sat together, ready to discuss their future plans. Originally, they wanted to rope in House En, but Mingyue and Zhang Wen clearly had no interest in participating in their business. It was as if the title of a noble house wasn't important to House En. In fact, this was also the case. These aristocratic families wanted the title of an aristocratic family, so that they could get the attention of other aristocratic families when doing business. However, the En family's business was the kind that couldn't be seen in the light. Having the title of an aristocratic family made them a little more fearful. So without the title of a noble house, they didn't really care. House Xiao and House Kong, on the other hand, were different. House Kong desperately wanted to enter the ranks of the noble houses because they were an alliance led by House Yu. They helped each other, and only then would they be able to do well in each other's territory. Now that family Xiao was kicked out of the noble house circle, they couldn't count on the other noble houses to take care of them anymore. Although they had the support of the hidden house Pai, those who had the support of Lin Yi wouldn't give the Xiao family any face. It would be hard for them to develop in the future. And so, Xiao Ben pulled Xiao Ji along with him and started to sit with Dr. Kong and Kong Guifeng, the two slightly unhappy people. Lin Yi, even the hidden house Pai can't do anything to him? Looking at Xiao Ji and Xiao Ben, Dr. Kong asked helplessly. He knew a thing or two about what happened between Lin Yi and the Xiao family. He knew that 3 people from House Pai died, but they didn't do anything to Lin Yi. He didn't understand. This Lin Yi might have a big background behind him. The hidden house Pai warned us not to mess with Lin Yi, but now it's a situation where we have no choice but to mess with him. Xiao Ji humphed. After being forced by him, our Xiao family's business, which had just started to get better, is going to be finished. We can only retreat back to Songshan. And this is Lin Yi's base. Yeah, you guys are making money for the hidden house Pai. Now that something like this happened, they can't just ignore you, right? Kong Guifeng asked. Alright, let's not talk about this for now. Xiao Bin was a smart man. He waved his hand and didn't answer Kong Guifeng's question. He knew that Kong Guifeng wanted him to go get revenge on House Pai, but House Pai had already expressed their stance on this. Although it affected House Pai's profits, Xiao Bin still didn't have the confidence to make House Pai help. He wanted to test House Kang's trump card. I say, House Kong, this time you want to become a noble house, so you've prepared well, right? What's your bargaining chip to become a noble house? You don't need to be so guarded against me. I want House Pai to help, but this reason isn't enough. Something that doesn't benefit them is something that a hidden noble house wouldn't do easily. You understand? Alright, if that's the case, then I'll tell you the truth. Dr. Kong said. Do you remember the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing? Of course I remember. What's wrong? Xiao Bin asked calmly. House Kong is currently researching the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. If we can get rid of the obstacle, that is Lin Yi, we can work together. I believe that with the recipe in our hands, even the hidden noble houses will respect us. Dr. Kong said. Chapter 1714. Oh, so you've developed it already? Xiao Bin asked, surprised. Not quite there yet. Dr. Kong shook his head. But you can tell the hidden house Pai that I'll give them priority once we've developed it, as long as they support us. That's good. I'll ask the hidden house Pai for their opinion. Xiao Bin sighed. But I can't promise anything. Alright. We've had some misunderstandings in the past, but now we should let bygones be bygones and work together. That's the only way we can fight against Lin Yi's alliance. Kang Guifeng said. That marriage between our two families, I think we can continue with it. Kang Guifeng was thinking further. If Xiaolong were to marry Xinyan, that would solidify his position in House Kang. Since House Kang and Xiao family's interests were intertwined, it was undeniable that a marriage was a huge bargaining chip. That's something I can consider, but we'll talk about it after we get through this. Xiaobin didn't decline. It was just a marriage between a niece with a different surname and House Kang, after all. He couldn't be too calculative with House Kang right now. Moreover, if the Kang family really managed to develop the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, then their status would skyrocket. The effects of the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing were practically on par with the legendary bone cleansing and marrow cleansing pill. In actuality, the bone cleansing and marrow cleansing pill was called the Greater Foundation Establishment Pill and the Lesser Foundation Establishment Pill. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, on the other hand, seemed to be even more effective than the Foundation Establishment Pill. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been sold at such a high price in the auction. The Foundation Establishment Pill could only refine one's body, and it couldn't extend one's lifespan. The pill of life extension and toxin cleansing, on the other hand, could do the trick. Heart, alright, the bigger picture is more important. Dr. Kang nodded. Our House Kang will be waiting for your good news. At the same time, something big happened in Songshan. Sihua brought his men to the orphanage and reported the matter to Zhao Qibing after the discussion with the headmaster broke down. Qibing wasn't feeling too good right now. He'd lost a couple $100 million to Bloodcloak Yellow Springs sect for no reason. He couldn't afford to offend them, but a small orphanage wasn't something he would put in his eyes. Sihua, take Boss Zhu with you and burn that orphanage down. Damn it, I'm giving them face but they don't want it. This time, I'll make them lose everything. Zhao Qibing slammed the table angrily. He really felt suffocated. Ever since he came to Songshan, other than getting a qi-gathering pill for House Zhao, he had accomplished nothing else. Holy Church becoming the head of the hidden house, Zhao wasn't something that could be achieved with just one qi-gathering pill. One had to have other abilities, and so Qibing had been earning money non-stop. Yes, Sihua nodded. Then I'll bring some men to prepare. Do it cleanly, don't leave any evidence behind. Qibing said. Remember, burn it cleanly, burn all the houses in the orphanage. If they can still live after the fire is extinguished, it'll be hard to do it again. Don't worry, Master Bing. I'm good at this. Sihua patted his chest and promised. How about this, you get ready, I'll light the fire myself. Qibing had a fire in his heart that he hadn't vented yet, and he wanted to light the fire himself to vent it. No problem, I've prepared everything. Master Bing, you just need to light the fire, Sihua said. And so, on a dark and windy night, Qibing brought Sihua and Boss Zhu to the orphanage. There was a large amount of gasoline in the back of Sihua's pickup truck, prepared to burn the orphanage down. Very well, this is a good day. The weather is dry, the moon is dark, and the wind is strong. It's a good day to set a fire, Qibing said. Boss Zhu, go pour the gasoline, pour as much as you can. The bigger the fire, the better. No problem. Boss Zhu got out of the car and jumped into the orphanage with a huge barrel of gasoline. Boss Zhu was an Earth-class master, and the orphanage's director and Xiaoka naturally wouldn't be able to sense his presence. So Boss Zhu went back and forth a few times, pouring all the gasoline into the orphanage and the surrounding fences. Everything's ready, Master Bing, you can light the fire now, Boss Zhu said. Well done. Qibing got out of the car with a torch in his hand, and with a whoosh, he threw it into the orphanage's yard. He then took a few more torches from Sihua and threw them all into the orphanage. The inside of the orphanage was instantly set ablaze. Haha, I'm leaving after I'm done. Qibing clapped his hands and said happily. Setting the orphanage on fire today made him feel a lot better. Before, he was bullied by Lin Yi's follower, Wu Qintian, and he couldn't take revenge. Although his broken leg was healed by Elder Bai, the incident with Bloodcloak and Yellow Spring sect made him want to die. Today, with the release of the fire, The depression in his chest had finally dissipated by more than half. Qibing and Boss Zhu got in the car, and Sihua stepped on the gas, and the truck disappeared into the night and the fire. Such a big fire. The orphanage will be destroyed tomorrow for sure. Sihua said as he looked in the rearview mirror. This is too good. No wonder there are so many stress-relieving amusement parks. People go and destroy them. It's so fun. Qibing said excitedly. I really want to burn another house. Ha! When the head of the house comes out, we'll go burn Lin Yi's villa. Sihua said. We'll get even with him then. Fuck, no wonder Lin Yi likes to tear down my skyscraper, it's so fun. Qibing said regretfully. I can't tear down a skyscraper. It'd be fun too. Qibing and the others returned to the floating cloud bar, and quickly fell asleep in excitement. The orphanage, on the other hand, was extremely busy. The first one to notice something was wrong was Xiaoka. She was depressed, but she had been sleeping late these past few days. She was sure that she was lovesick, and the image of the male thief kept appearing in her mind, causing her to have insomnia. In the middle of the night, she dreamt of the male thief, and when she woke up, she saw the fire outside her window. She jumped in fright and rushed out of her house, only to find that the yard and the roof were on fire. Chapter 17:16. The building is burned too? Xiaoka couldn't care less about the things in her room anymore. She quickly went to wake the dean up. Oh no, there's a fire. School Beauty's Bodyguard Chapter 17:16. The dean was a light sleeper, and was woken up by Xiaoka's voice. She was shocked when she saw the situation outside. Quick, go save the children. And so, Xiaoka and the dean quickly rushed into the children's dormitory. Fortunately, both of them were descendants of the Fian sect. Although they were in a sea of fire, they could always find a place to stay. The two of them risked their lives to rescue the children in the orphanage. Behind them, the orphanage was already a vast sea of fire. The wind was strong today, and the air was dry, so the fire was out of control. From the orphanage, it was already spreading to other areas. After saving the children, Xiaoka finally reacted. Yes, let's call the fire department. The orphanage is going to burn. In the rush, the dean didn't bring her phone, and the orphanage was right next to the construction site of the slums. On the other side was the business district, but the shops were all closed at night, and it was hard to find a single person. The dean looked around for a long time before finding a public phone booth to call the fire department. But by then, the fire had already spread to the construction site of the slums next to the orphanage. By the time the piercing sound of the fire engine sounded, the fire was already out of control. Although a number of fire trucks came to support, due to the strong wind and the large fire, there were a lot of flammable items piled up on the construction site of the shanty town, such as wooden cubes and the like. As a result, the fire grew bigger and bigger. It was not until dawn that the fire was extinguished. Qibing, Sihua, and Boss Zhu, on the other hand, had a good night's sleep. When they woke up the next morning, Qibing couldn't wait to get Sihua to turn on the TV. Quick, look at the new. The orphanage is probably in ruins now. Haha, that's for sure. Sihua nodded and turned on the TV. The three of them sat on the sofa, ready to watch the destruction of the orphanage. Around 1 in the morning, a huge fire broke out in the orphanage near the old slums. When the firefighters arrived, the fire was already out of control, and it started to spread to the construction site nearby. After the firefighters' hard work, they finally extinguished the fire at 7 this morning. But the orphanage, as well as the newly built Qibing skyscraper, were all burnt to ashes. Following the news, there was a scene of the orphanage and Qibing skyscraper being burnt down. Gah! Qibing heard the news and jumped up with a whoosh. He looked at the news in disbelief. Impossible! How is this possible? My skyscraper! Sihua and Boss Zhu had a bitter look on their faces as well. They didn't think that burning the orphanage would burn down the Qibing skyscraper next to it. And the most important thing was that the newly built skyscraper hadn't even been used for a day. Who can tell me what's going on? Qibing kicked the TV angrily, shattering the LCD TV. It fell to the ground, creating sparks. But Qibing didn't care. How much was a TV? What he cared about now was the Qibing skyscraper. This skyscraper had been destroyed twice since it was built. The first 2 times were caused by Lin Yi, but the third time, he burned it down with his own hands. This, Master Bing. We didn't know that it would affect the Qibing skyscraper next to it. Sihua was troubled as well. I just followed your instructions, and found a weather that would be easy to set fire to. Master Bing, I'm just following your orders, pouring the gasoline. Boss Zhu said with a bitter face. Neither he nor Sihua were experts in this field, nor did they have any experience. How was Sihua supposed to calculate the intensity of the fire? Boss Zhu, on the other hand, couldn't have predicted that the intensity of the fire would affect the Qibing skyscraper. It's not your fault. Qibing waved his hand helplessly and sat on the ground. He should have given more money to the orphanage, or built a new one somewhere else, if he knew this would happen. But it was too late for regrets now. Although Qibing's goal was achieved, the price he paid was too high. Sihua was hoping to earn more money from this project to pay back Bloodcloak Underworld. But it seemed like it was all for naught now. Sihua had a bitter look on his face all day long. But compared to Sihua and Qibing, the orphanage was the most difficult. The orphanage was gone, and the dean had no choice but to bring the children to a cheaper duplex loft. Hundreds of children were squeezed into a 300 square meter room. And it wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was a squeeze. Xiaoke had gotten a lot of money for the orphanage a while ago, but it wasn't enough to rebuild the orphanage. After all, they couldn't rebuild the orphanage with the old bungalows, could they? They had to make it more presentable. Xiaoke's money was reserved for the orphanage's daily expenses. If she took it out from the bank and used it to rebuild the orphanage, it wouldn't be enough. What would they do after the money was used up? The treasures Xiaoke brought out were only worth around 5 million. 5 million was fine if it was just for the simple construction, but it wouldn't even be enough to buy the necessary equipment if they had to build the facilities. This fire must have been set by someone from Zhao Qibing's company, but they didn't set it up properly and burned their own company nearby. Ken said angrily, "They deserve it, they deserve it." I'm guessing that Sihua will come to us again to discuss the swap. And this time, we'll have to do it even if we don't want to. The dean sighed helplessly. We really can't afford to offend the hidden house Zhao. If it were back then. Sigh. What the dean wanted to say was that if it were back then, she wouldn't even care about a small hidden house. But now, the hidden Zhao family was a colossus to her. But Xiaoke only knew a limited amount about what happened back then, and the dean didn't want to talk too much about it. She didn't want her enemies to come and ruin their peaceful life. Chapter 17:15. No. The dean and Ken interrupted Xiaoke's thoughts at the same time. You already escaped death last time. Aren't you just looking to die if you go again? Then what should we do? We can't have a bunch of people here, can we? They sleep together every night. It's hard to even turn around. Xiaoke said worriedly as she looked at the horrible environment. It's so hot. I'm afraid the kids might get heat rash. Xiaoke sis, maybe you should go look for Linny Bro again. Ken hinted. Didn't he bring a bunch of donations to the orphanage last time? That was already the limit. Most people have already donated money. How can we make things difficult for them again? Xiaoke shook her head. Plus, my relationship with Linny isn't that good. He seems to look down on me. I don't want to trouble him. Look down on him? I don't think so. Ken thought. Look down on you and still go save you? How is that possible? This was a bit troublesome. He'd promised Lin Yi, but he couldn't tell Xiaoke. He could only hint at her, and she wouldn't understand. Xiaoke's right. We can't always trouble other people. We need to think of a way ourselves. Well, Amos nodded and said, he helped us once before. How can we trouble him again? Oh, Ken nodded, thinking that he should find a chance to call Linny and ask him if he had any ideas. It seemed like Xiaoke sis was going to marry him in the future, so it was only right for him to do something for the orphanage now. Otherwise, how could he bring home the goddess of the orphanage? Now the ones with the biggest headache were Qibing and Sihua. They didn't have the mood to negotiate with the orphanage anymore. It was the same as looting a burning house and giving the police something to use against them. Of course, this wasn't the main thing. The main thing was that Qibing's new building was burnt down, and he couldn't help but curse his bad luck. Ever since he started his business, he hadn't done anything successful. His real estate business had been failing from the start. Luckily, Elderby didn't care much about external things, and Sihua took all the responsibility, so Elderby didn't blame Qibing. After all, as far as he was concerned, Qibing was focused on practicing now, leaving the company to his underlings. This was his underlings doing out of goodwill, but it had nothing to do with Qibing. After the noble house meeting, Lin Yi and Yushu returned to Songshan. According to Lin Yi's promise with them, he was going to bring them to Star West Village for a trip in August. Holy Church, Yutian Lingshan and Chintian, on the other hand, went back to their houses. The situation in the noble houses had changed, and they needed to go back and discuss countermeasures. In actuality, as Lin Yi's strength increased, so did his view of the world. In his eyes, those noble houses that were high and mighty were nothing more than this now. So Lin Yi wasn't too enthusiastic about the cultivators' union. He was just making a name for it. And in actuality, his right and left hands were Chintian, Yutian, and Lingshan. As for their families, it was fine as long as they didn't cause trouble for Lin Yi. Lin Yi received a call from Ken on the way back, and only then did he know that the orphanage was on fire, and now it was a pile of ashes. The funny thing was that Qibing's building was burnt down to a skeleton as well, and he had to tear it down and rebuild it. Ken, you're suspecting that the fire has something to do with Zhao Qibing? Lin Yi understood what Ken was trying to say. We all suspect it, but we don't have any evidence, and their building was burnt down as well. That's their excuse. Ken was a little mischievous, and he understood the situation very well. Oh, I don't need evidence to do things, so we need to ask them for money. Lin Yi wasn't Lingshan, and he only needed to suspect. Lin Yi thought, was this little bastard Zhao Qibing's leg itching again? Hadn't he broken it enough? It seemed like he had to find a chance to break it again. At the mention of money, Ken said, "Male thief bro, can you support the orphanage with some money? You're a male thief, you must be rich. Or else, Xiaoka sis has to go on a mission again, and you don't want her to take the risk, do you?" Ken was asking Lin Yi for money, but he didn't feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he said it as if it was the right thing to do. From his perspective, Lin Yi wanted to marry Xiaoka, so he should at least give her some money, right? You know about it? Lin Yi was a little surprised at Ken's analysis. It seemed like Xiaoka had told him about what happened that day. I guessed. Ken said, how could there be such a coincidence? I just told you that Xiaoka sis was in trouble, and the male thief went to help her? Ha! Lin Yi smiled helplessly. How was he a male thief? A proper male thief would have died a long time ago. Where would he get the money? But he still asked, how much does the orphanage need? I'm not sure, but rebuilding it might need a lot of money. Xiaoka sis and the dean are worried about it. Ken said, all right, I'll think of a way. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment before agreeing. Lin Yi wasn't a nosy person, but with his relationship with Xiaoka, he couldn't just ignore it. Besides, Lin Yi had seen how hard it was for the children in the orphanage. Now that it was on fire, it must be even more difficult. Then I'll wait for your good news. Thank you, male thief bro. Ken heard Lin Yi's agreement and was very happy. And wait for my good news. Lin Yi said, all right, thank you, male thief bro. Ken thanked Lin Yi again. Don't worry, I'll help you keep your identity a secret. Haha, okay. Lin Yi was a little helpless towards Ken. Although his last sentence was almost a threat, meaning that if Lin Yi didn't help, he would tell Xiaoka his identity. But Lin Yi didn't dislike it at all, because Ken wasn't doing this for himself. He was doing this for the orphanage just like Xiaoka. Shield bro, what's wrong? Can you talk to Shu about it? Yushu asked when she saw the frown on his face. Zhao Qibing, that idiot, burned down the orphanage and his new building. He's really looking for trouble. I think he needs a beating, so he's looking for trouble. Lin Yi shrugged. That's right, I'm looking for trouble. Lin Yi shrugged. Ah, seriously? Burned again? This guy is really unlucky. Yushu subconsciously stuck out her tongue when she heard that Qibing's building was destroyed again. Was this guy a jinx? Otherwise, ordinary people wouldn't be so unlucky, right? Chapter 17-18. Thank you for your hard work. His bad luck is secondary. The key is that the children in the orphanage don't have a place to stay anymore. They're all living in a 300 square meter attic, and it's so crowded. Linny said, "How much does it cost to rebuild an orphanage?" Linny said, "How much does it cost to rebuild an orphanage? I'm not sure about that. But if it's our land, we'll only have the construction fees left." "Shield bro, you can ask Fatty Lai. Wasn't he a professional in construction? You should remind it." "Okay, I'll ask him," Linny said and called Fatty Lai. "Boss, you're back." Fatty Lai was one of those who was well informed. He had heard the news of House Yu's downfall, and that House Kang's application to become a noble house had failed. This made him even happier. With this, House Kang had even less of a competitive edge. House Lai's status would rise, and Lai Changyi's name would become more and more famous. After all, he was Lin Yi's follower. Lai Changyi had long expected that he would have such a day. Now, he had an advantage over any noble house, because he was one of the first followers of Lin Yi. "Not yet, it's on the way." Linny said, "There's something I want to ask you. I want to build an orphanage. If we have the land, how much does it cost?" Fatty Lai paused. He didn't understand why Linny asked this, but he still answered honestly. Building an orphanage depends on the type of building. If it's a larger scale, it'll be comparable to a school. For example, those orphanages in big cities have dormitories, activity rooms, libraries, and so on. Some even have their own kindergartens, elementary schools, and middle schools. If we build all of these together, it'll cost at least 100 million. Of course, if we buy all the necessary facilities, it'll cost at least 200 million. That much? Linny was surprised. Of course, if it's just a normal orphanage providing food and lodging for the orphans, a few million would be enough, Fatty Lai said. The key is what kind of building you want it to be, boss. If we want to build it, we'll do it in one go and build it better. Linny listened to Fatty Lai's price and felt a headache. 200 million? How could it be so much money? But thinking about it, if it was as Fatty Lai said, and all the facilities were built, the entire orphanage would be comparable to a small university. It would indeed require a lot of investment. But Linny wasn't willing to just build it the same way it was. "Actually, we don't need that much. We can do it step by step and build it slowly. Don't invest in the unnecessary things like the computer center, library, and gymnasium for now. If we just build the dormitory and canteen, a few million will be enough. If we have our own land, we won't even need this money." Fatty Lai said, "But the beds, tables, and other facilities will add up to 5 million. Do you have any money left?" Linny asked. "I can definitely take out a few million. If it's too much, it'll affect the company's operations," Fatty Lai said. "Forget it, I'll think of something myself." Linny spent 100 million when he participated in the Ice Palace's trial, and it made Fatty Lai's side a little tight. The medical company was still developing rapidly, and it wouldn't work without money. "Boss, I'm really ashamed to let you think of something yourself." Fatty Lai was a little embarrassed. "It's okay. I understand your difficulties." Linny was thinking about where he could get 200 million. Although he could borrow from any noble house, it would still make people think that Linny was extorting them. Linny thought about it, and thought about the old man. He went on missions a few years ago, and earned a lot of money, right? Even if it wasn't a few 100 million, it was at least tens of millions. Linny felt that he should ask the old man for some money. He called the old man's number, and old Lin's lazy voice came from the other side. "Little E, what's the matter? Is everything done over there?" "Yes, it's all done. I'm calling to borrow some money from you," Linny said. "Borrow money?" "No," old Lin said straightforwardly. "No. Where did the money I earned from the missions I did go? Don't tell me that I only earned tens of yuan from one mission." Linny heard old Lin's words and found it funny and annoying at the same time. "I didn't want to argue with you before, but I really have something to do now. Wait, I'll send you something." Old Lin didn't answer Lin Yi's question and said, "Oh." Linny wanted to ask something, but old Lin had already hung up. Not long after, Linny received a message on his phone. He opened it and saw a photo of a bunch of receipts. Linny zoomed in and took a closer look. They were receipts for donations and remittances. Seeing this, Linny was silent. It seemed that old Lin had donated all his money to charity all these years. Thinking about how stingy old Lin was at home, Linny felt a little sour in his heart. He used to misunderstand this old man, thinking that he was a stingy person who didn't spend money, and even made him work part-time to weave straw sandals for money. But now it seemed that old Lin really didn't enjoy anything at all. As for the money used to raise Lin, it was most likely all from the money he earned from his medical practice in the village. Moreover, his treatment was almost free, and he only earned a little from buying medicine. It wasn't easy for him to raise Lin with this kind of income. Lin sighed and quietly called back. "Did you receive it?" Old Lin asked straightforwardly. "Yes, it's been hard on you all these years," Lin said. "Haha, it's nothing." Old Lin laughed and said, "What do you need money for? It's similar to what you're doing. I have an orphanage here that caught fire. I want to rebuild it, and I want to build it into a first-class orphanage," Lin said. "So I'm in urgent need of money." "I see," Old Lin said. "Do you still want to carry out missions? This is faster to earn money. If you want, I can help you keep an eye out." "Sure." Lin gritted his teeth and agreed. "Help me keep an eye out. If there are missions, help me introduce them, but it's best not to go too far. I'll help you take a look. There might not be any. If there is, I'll contact you again," Old Lin said. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.